And ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the prosecution is not going to get that man today. No, because I'm going to get him.
This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is a Thursday, February 28th, 2013. I'm Doug Hagmann. With me is my co-host, my son, Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We are going to be bringing you 3 hours of unbiased, uncensored news, analysis, and information you need to know in these very perilous times, folks. Last day of February. And we're going to take a look back on the month of February, exactly what happened, how much news was made, what the important elements of the news were, and we're going to be taking it from there. We're also going to be taking, for a lot of the program, your calls, your concerns. Give us a call at 661-244-9839. The phones are opening now, so line up. Joe, welcome to the program.
Very glad to be here in studio where the lights work.
Hey, lights are on. That's right. That's a good thing.
Yeah. It's been an interesting day. We spent the day in the studio once again on our own.
Together, offices, same office, didn't say a word to each other. Well, I shouldn't say that.
We talked just very minimally. But, you know, there is so much going on. But we're going to keep an open phone line throughout the night, like you said, and take calls all night. But first, we have to hit a few pieces of information, and I want to start.
Got to do that.
On the religious stories. This out of the New American. Saudi Arabia continues crackdown on private Christian worship. Officials in Saudi Arabia are notorious for their intolerance of outsiders observing the Christian faith within Saudi borders. On February 8th, the country's religious police, you hear that? The country's religious police reinforced that reputation when they arrested 53 Ethiopian Christians involved in a private prayer service in the Saudi city of Dammam, shutting down the service and hauling the believers off to jail. According to the World Evangelism Alliance, a total of 46 women and 6 men were arrested in the raid, and 3 of the Christians identified as leaders of the private house church were charged with trying to convert Muslims to the Christian faith. Now, deviating from the article, going back to what they said here, 46 women and 6 men were arrested in the raid. Now, we see raids taking place on industries and businesses, and even in some cases private church worships ceremonies in the United States, where we never thought we'd see them before. The raw food stores. They have raided raw food stores at gunpoint numerous times. Gibson Guitars. There was a water bottle company out of Arkansas. They raided, as I said, they shut down somebody in California for holding private Bible worships in their home. So this was something you will see here. Just because it's happening in Saudi Arabia, they have always been very, isn't it the fact if you have a Bible?
You can't take a Bible in there.
You get your hand cut off, right?
No, I think you just get arrested. But I mean, if you're a foreigner, look, if you're flying, for example, I know that the British flights fly into Riyadh. The flight attendants. What's the right word? Stewardesses, I want to say, but flight attendants apparently is the proper way. They can't wear crosses. They can't wear any type of Christian jewelry. They can't have Bibles with them. There's a whole list of things that they are not allowed to do to show their Christianity.
Yeah, and listen to this. This will give you inside look into what they do. In December of 2011, the Saudi religious police, known as the Mudaween, arrested 35 Ethiopian Christians after illicit mingling, after the authorities raided a prayer meeting in Jeddah. According to Human Rights Watch, some of the Christians were tortured. The women were subjected to arbitrary body cavity searches. In September 2012, a Saudi Arabian girl who converted to Christianity fled to the town of Dammam, the same place where this arrest just happened. And a Saudi Center for Petroleum and Natural Gas Protection in a major seaport. This is the town. But the girl was eventually granted asylum in Sweden last month, according to the Al-Yom newspaper. But the U.S. Commission on International Religious Freedoms noted Saudi Arabia continues to oppress non-Muslim religious observers, with Christians taking most of the abuse. And they are notorious for their intolerance. They are, like you said, relentless in their pursuit to make sure if they find anybody expressing any Christian beliefs, whether through their mouth, through their jewelry, through their clothes, by a book, literature they hold, they will not only arrest them, but subject them to torture and other things.
Look, they're behind. The Saudis are behind all of the mosques, 85% of the mosques in the United States. We have to remember that. So their religious intolerance is exported from Saudi Arabia to the United States. We've got to understand this. The Saudi culture, the Saudi religious culture, the Saudi, the whole Saudi structure is behind what we're seeing today here in America. So if you think that what's going on in Saudi Arabia is not going to affect us here at all, that's not the right way to think. I would caution, I would caution everyone to watch what's taking place in Saudi Arabia, because it's going to be exported here under the guise of religious tolerance and freedom. And we've already seen this happen since 9/11. George Bush was a big one. Grover Norquist was a big one. Karl Rove was a big one into bringing this into this country, bringing this type of mindset into this country. And everyone acquiesces and says, oh, well, we've got to be tolerant. Well, the embracing evil under the guise of tolerance makes tolerance itself evil. I've often said that. This is what we're seeing right now.
And no wonder they're not, overthrowing Saudi Arabia with CIA-backed, Al-Qaeda-funded civil unrest, riots, and civil wars, because Saudi Arabia already has the strict Islamic rule. That's just one of the reasons, that they're overthrowing these nations.
It's horrific, folks. It is horrific. The oppression, the religious oppression by the Saudis is horrific. We have to understand that this is exactly what, and who backs the Council on American and Islamic Relations mostly? Well, it's none other than a Saudi Arabian extension. It's the Saudi arm. It's the Saudi diplomacy, I suppose.
Yeah, and the girl who escaped here that I mentioned earlier in the article said that the nearly total silence on the part of the U.S. government over the Saudi religious oppression has much to do with a strategic partnership between the two nations, charging that pressuring the Islamic government to change its behavior has taken a backseat to oil and the war on terror. But I would go on to say, at the same time, the pressure for Christians in America to conform to the Obama regulations that are against their faith has not taken a back seat. They're making sure they are implementing their agenda on the Christians in America.
Well, look, as I said before, what we have to watch for is the exportation of this policy, of these policies, through the Council on American and Islamic Relations, through other organizations. You've got the National or the Islamic Association of North America, ISNA. You've got a variety of other shell groups that are embracing these. I suppose I don't even know what I would call it. It's actually attempting. We talk about Sharia law, folks. This is part and parcel to Sharia law, especially when you are talking about various countries, including Saudi Arabia, who want to criminalize the discussion or criminalize any type of criticism of Islam and make it against the law here in this country. It's coming, but they're doing it also through the United Nations, through the American Organization of Islamic States in the United Nations. And this is all part and parcel to this. So what you might hear, you might read about this in the mainstream media. It's only the tip of a very large, very wide, and very deep iceberg, and that iceberg is what is taking place here in the West. And that this is all going to be taking place in the West. But see, now let's take it one step further. Where's this going to end up? Well, the big three religions. They're all going to be assumed into or assimilated into this global religion because, well, they're spoiling for a fight. Islam is spoiling for a fight against all other religions, against Christianity, and of course, Christianity. Our beliefs are not consistent with Islamic beliefs. Certainly not consistent with the beliefs of a communist state, which is what they're trying to do. I talked to a friend, talked to a source today, a friend, and I was asking some questions. He said, well, the problem is this. You're looking at this as if you want to, well, basically as a sane person, but you're looking at this as someone who has loyalty to the United States. These people in power don't have loyalty, and that it drives this insane action. It's all just for the destruction of our Constitution and our Bill of Rights. These people don't want to reinforce our freedoms, and they want to destroy our freedoms, destroy our country. That's what their objective is. So just want to tell you that.
Yeah. And so we can get to as many phone calls as we can.
Wait. Islamophobia. Wait a second. Excuse me. The Organization of Islamic Cooperation, OIC, which has been on the forefront of the Islamist mission, or the Muslim mission, to establish the equivalent of Islamic blasphemy laws in the United States. Well, during the latest summit it held in Cairo this past month, the OIC set forth new and creative ways to silence and ultimately criminalize the criticism of Islam. Now, for those who don't know or recall what the OIC is, the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, remember when Obama slipped up and said he had visited all 57 states? Well, this is what the OIC is. Okay. Now, it represents, or claims to represent, 1.5 billion Muslims around the globe. It's the second largest international organization in the world, behind only the United Nations, and the largest Islamic organization in the world. So it's quite powerful, but they're arguably the largest voting bloc in the UN, but most people never even heard of this, especially people here. Have you heard about the Organization of Islamic Cooperation within the United Nations, a 57-member state organization? Have you heard about it? If you haven't, well, this is another part of this equation. Criminalize or make the equivalent of Islamic blasphemy laws here in the West. And believe this, it's hard for me to believe, actually. In 2011, at the State Department's request, the OIC drafted a resolution that was intended to retain freedom of expression while still addressing OIC's concerns about alleged, quotes, Islamophobia. So what the U.S. is attempting to do is appease the Organization of Islamic States, and what's going to happen is they're going to run roughshod over the U.S. and ultimately twist things around.
They're not trying to appease these people. This is one of their things that happened because of their agenda, more than appeasing the beliefs of the Muslims that want this implemented or want this. They are tearing apart the fabric and culture of society, and that's most important. Moving on in the news here.
Well, wait a second. Before you do that, you mentioned something. Where best do you do that? But at the federal law level, federal judicial level. And so, what are we seeing take place? A lot of Obama appointees now are in federal positions, judgeships.
And that's where I'm going now. Obama administration steps into gay marriage battle. Now, this is the U.S. Supreme Court's going to be hearing arguments later this month or in March on especially Proposition 8 in California. I want to get to that, but they're going to be hearing arguments on to uphold same-sex marriages in California, and the Justice Department is urging the Supreme Court to uphold these same-sex marriages, and goes on even further, suggesting it is unconstitutional to block gay couples from getting married in a half a dozen other states. And listen to this now, okay, is the California Proposition 8 was the name of the thing they voted on, which was to legalize or ban gay marriages in the state of California. In 2008, the people of California voted overwhelmingly by 52% to ban gay marriages or same-sex marriages. Well, the federal judge had declared the ban unconstitutional, and the Federal Appeals Court last year upheld the ruling. So the people voted on an issue that was brought to them to vote on.
Right. And
the court rules their vote is unconstitutional.
Correct.
I mean, the madness of the way these people think, the influence that the administration and the Justice Department and these people obviously have on the Supreme Court through Kagan, through Sotomayor, through these people that Obama has put in, and even through people Bush appointed, and all the rest of them.
Well, we also have to look to what at the gun legislation now, what could happen and really what could happen at the federal level. The Supreme Court might very well be forced to rule on our rights to carry concealed weapons. Now, I don't know. This was on Fox News, I believe, today, but it just didn't seem like they covered the entire issue. But
what else is now?
Well, hey, look, the Supreme Court might decide to hear a case that could make it illegal to carry concealed weapons anywhere in the country. You see,
that works.
Well, no, wait a second, though, because we have to go back, and I understand that this is a hot-button issue, as well it should be for everybody, but let's go back to how and why we're saying this. The Federal Appeals Court in Illinois decided that a person's right to carry a concealed weapon is not protected under the Second Amendment. All right, so you got some federal appeals court in Illinois saying, hey, now, you know what, CCW, not part of the Second Amendment. Now, Colorado, they said, well, no, things are a little bit different in Colorado. Moore versus Madison, the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals said the right to bear, as distinct from the right to keep arms, is unlikely to refer to the home. So, bearing arms within one's own home would, at all times, have been an awkward usage. The right to bear arms outside of one's home. Well, the ruling actually implies the right to carry a loaded gun outside of the house. So you've got dueling federal courts. You've got the Federal Court of Appeals in Illinois, and you've got the Seventh Circuit Court from Colorado saying two different things. So who's going to decide that? The Peterson case, Peterson versus Martinez, is from Illinois. So if you're taking notes for this show, or if you're listening to this and you want the details, in Illinois, it's Peterson v. Martinez, And in Colorado, it's Moore, Moore versus Madison. And who's going to decide this? Perhaps the Supreme Court. Now, just bear that in mind. You might say, well, geez, it's been decided already. Well, really, it has not.
Yeah. And talking about guns here, we had Andrew Cuomo announced it yesterday. This article is from yesterday. Cuomo announced his plan to modify gun control law to exempt Hollywood. Now, they're also going to fix the error in the legislation that made it illegal for cops to carry the weapons they were carrying.
And see, I don't understand how what Cuomo says, how it can affect Hollywood. What does he mean? Does he mean people walking in New York that are from Hollywood? Does he mean actors on sets in Hollywood or in New York City? Exactly how does this work? What are the mechanics of that statement?
Well, he says, we spend a lot of money in the state bringing movie producers here, post-production here. So obviously, we would want to facilitate that. Cuomo said the prop firearms used in the films would probably not be classified as an assault weapon, but they're not talking about the props, obviously, in the law that they're changing. So what they are doing here, it says Cuomo and lawmakers announced on Wednesday that they'll also fix the error that made into the law that was made its way into the law about the police. But they are, he says, plenty of people want certainty, and there's no reason not to make a change like that. Apparently, they have blanks or they have phony magazines or something. So this that I'm reading here from the CBS, local New York CBS, is lying to their readers, because this bill does not, it's not, if fake guns or guns firing blanks or whatever props they use as guns on movie sets, this is not what they're trying to change, because this was never illegal, okay? Are you really going to go into a movie set and start arresting people who are using prop guns in a movie scene firing blanks? No. Even if with their new gun laws. This is about Hollywood, their actors, their bodyguards, and the special people. They obviously have an idea of one class of people, and then they have an idea about the rest of us. Now, whatever people refer to as Hollywood stars, NFL players, whatever they're called, the famous people, they are obviously going to be exempt from these things, like many of them are with other issues.
Well, they're going to have to pass it in order for people to understand what it really means. That's kind of like the health care bill. That's ridiculous. But what's
reasoning given? Yeah.
I mean, what's the end game objective here? And I think people are going to be, people should be just absolutely enraged. I have not commented on this. I have not wrote anything on this. The UN agreement, folks, let's look at this again, because the United Nations does not like the fact that we are allowed to bear arms. They don't like our Second Amendment, not even a little bit. And they want to do something. They want to see Americans disarmed. So under the guise of the Small Arms Treaty that we talked about, which is premised to fight terrorism and things like insurgency and the crime syndicates, the more hideous threat that's being targeted are our constitutional rights, the constitutional right for law-abiding American citizens to own and bear arms. Now, you might say, well, okay, what exactly is being targeted here? What does this agreement that is in progress, what's it entail? I'll tell you, here are just a couple of things. And this is coming back around here within the next month. These have not yet been made public. They're out there if you look for them, but they haven't been made public. So if the UN passes the resolution before them, the same resolution that we had at the end of last year that everyone tabled, and then Obama said, okay, we're going to talk about it. This is right after his reelection. One of the first calls he made was to instruct the U.S. delegation in the United Nations to talk about, or to get back in the talks about the UN resolution.
No, the UN resolution.
Well, what?
They have, remember, the Organization of American States.
Right.
They are a branch of the UN. They also have treaties on the books waiting for the U.S. to be a part of if they choose to, that do the same thing. Basically, it is the same language that is used in the Small Arms Treaty. So they could backdoor it through a different arm of the UN under a different name. There's a few organizations like this, but the UN Small Arms Treaty is the main.
Right, and you've got this coming from different, like you said, the OAS and stuff. But here are 5 issues that people have to understand. The UN Small Arms Treaty, or Arms Treaty, we'll call it the Small Arms Treaty, because that's what it's known as. What does it entail? Well, the enactment of tougher licensing requirements, creating additional red tape for legal firearms ownership. In other words, legislative, or make it so bureaucratically cumbersome that no one's going to be allowed to own, let alone carry, a firearm. Secondly, confiscate and destroy all unauthorized civilian firearms. The only people that would be exempt from this would be the federal, state, and local municipal law enforcement agencies. Ban the trade, sale, and private ownership of all semi-automatic weapons. I don't care if it's a pistol that you have. You're not going to have it. And magazines, even though they still operate one trigger pull, one bullet, the same manner as revolvers, for example. Ban the trade, the sale, private ownership of the semi-automatic weapons, as well as the magazines, and destroy them. Create an international gun registry, setting the stage for a full global gun confiscation. What's standing behind it? The United States. So in short, overriding our national sovereignty, and in the process providing the license for the federal government to assert any type of preemptive powers over state regulatory powers guaranteed by the 10th Amendment in addition to our Second Amendment rights. And people will say, well, wait a minute. Now, you know what? You're crazy, Doug, because the Senate's got to ratify this, and according to our Constitution. Really? You talk to me about that after it's said and done. Have no doubt, folks, that this plan is extremely real, that this administration supports it, and the fact is that in 2010, the United States, at the direction of Obama, joined 152 other countries in endorsing this treaty. And in 2012, after Obama was reelected, they drafted a blueprint for enactment, and Clinton pledged to push for Senate ratification. Former UN Ambassador Bolton, he's come out and said, look, you guys got to take this seriously, meaning us. And I just want to say this too. While professing to support the Second Amendment during her presidential election bid, remember this, folks, Hillary Clinton, well, she's not generally known as a gun rights enthusiast. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm not going to get into Hillary Clinton at all at this point. We'll just say this. Looking at the historical votes and proclivities of the Obama administration, be very, very wary of the small arms trade treaty. because it's excuse me, right now it's more than ever it's imperative to demand that all of our constitutional rights are preserved. If we lose the Second Amendment right to carry and bear and carry arms, we're going to lose all other rights as well. So I do know that we have other news to get to, but this is so important. This is so important, folks.
Yes, it is. And this next, I'm going to go through two pieces and news. One has an audio clip, and then we're going to go to phone calls. Janet Napolitano, Homeland Security Secretary, regrets the announcement of the immigration release. The Department of Homeland Security, Janet Napolitano, had no decision in the part of releasing low-risk illegal immigrants. This was done by underlings, as the article states, as a way to save more money before the sequestration. I'll just leave it at that because it's just so ridiculous. But more importantly here, U.S. agrees to supply Syrian rebels with $60 million in non-lethal aid. For the first time, this is from the Washington Times, for the first time, the United States has agreed to provide non-lethal aid to Syrian opposition fighters. Now, that's what the article says, as opposed to the lethal aid they've been sending them for the last 18 months. Now, here is
all non-lethal aid is lethal aid. It's all disguised as non-lethal aid.
Yeah, but they're sending body armor.
Right, there is absolutely no distinction, practical, realistic distinction. Go ahead and play the clip.
Meanwhile, we are, $85 billion sequestration that is going to cut, according to Maxine Waters, 170 million jobs, which I'll post a link. You got to search for the article if you guys aren't listening live or in the chat room. But Maxine Waters said the sequestration could lead to the loss of 170 million jobs in America. Now, I don't even think there are that many people working in America. But
a lot of these are scare tactics, and a lot of this is just Obama joining. Well, it's just scare tactics,
saying that they're going to be terrorist attacks if they let the sequestration happen. Here is John Kerry, new Department Defense Secretary. This is what he had to say about extending aid.
Wait a minute. No, he's John Kerry.
I'm proud to announce that the United States of America will be providing an additional $60 million immediately in non-lethal assistance to support the coalition in its operational needs day to day as it continues to organize and work for the political transition that we all want to see. And I look forward to working with the United States Congress on this. This funding will allow the opposition to reach out and help the local councils to be able to rebuild in their liberated areas of Syria so that they can provide basic services to people who often lack access today to medical care, to food, to sanitation. This includes helping Syrians preserve institutions of state, which are critical to enabling a future transition in Syria itself, and also to helping those who work within them, those without blood on their hands, to be able to continue to do their important humanitarian work. We will also channel this assistance to those projects and local groups that the coalition decides needs it the most. And as the regime continues to lose ground, these funds will also help the opposition forces and political leaders be able to extend stability as well as build representative government and rule of law and extend that rule of law to those newly liberated areas. I want to make clear, this new support that President Obama has ordered is on top of more than $50 million that we've provided to help the Syrian activists organize opposition efforts across the country to be able to communicate with each other and to broadcast a message of hope across their country. Today in our meeting, which I found to be remarkably united, every country expressing its revulsion against these scuds, against the tactics of this regime, every country articulating an urgency to our need to unite in our efforts to help the people of Syria against an enemy that respects no battlefield rules.
Yeah. So there was John Kerry talking about the new $60 million deal, Obama-approved deal. On top of that, he mentioned a $50 million previous aid package. So $110 million of our tax money to fund Al-Qaeda in overthrowing Assad in Syria. He also said, this is something we all want to see, is the rebels having these basic services, having basic...
Folks, aren't you seeing what's taking place here? Okay, here's what we're doing. I mean, this is nation building. This is tearing down the Assad regime for a specific purpose. And folks, you can go back to all the Benghazi articles. It mentions the root cause for Benghazi was to arm the anti-Assad rebels, if you will, rebels, Al-Qaeda, AQIM. We are fighting Russia by proxy. We are fighting Iran by proxy. We're fighting Syria, most importantly, by proxy. Syria is. I want to take down Syria, of course, and this is behind this plan, of course, is the Muslim Brotherhood. Well, people would say, well, geez, this doesn't sound right. Well, all right. Look, we talked earlier about Sharia in the United States, and let's drag the Muslim Brotherhood into this and create a kind of a bigger mosaic. Take a few steps back. Who in the world is in our White House right now? We've got Obama, the cultural Muslim. You've got the Assistant Secretary for Policy Development of the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, Arif Ali-Khan, Muslim. You've got Mohammed El-Bari, Homeland Security Advisor. You've got Rashad Hussain, Special Envoy to the Organization of the Islamic Conference, or the OIC. These are right-hand people of Obama. Salam El-Mariyati, Obama advisor, founder of the Muslim Public Affairs Council, MPAC, by the way, and current executive director. You've got Imam Mohammed Majid, Obama's Sharia czar, Islamic Society of North America. Remember, I mentioned that, Islamic Society of North America, ISNA. And now we have Ibu Patel, the Advisory Council on Faith-Based Neighborhood Partnerships. I tell you what, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 names I just rattled off there that are Islamic. They're not born in this country, and they're making policy for this country under an Islamic or Islamically controlled regime in the White House. Now, I don't care if somebody wants to debate. You know what? If someone wants to debate that issue, please call in at 661-244-9839. I'd love to debate you on that topic, 661-244-9839. Any takers? Go ahead. But
moving to calls in just 1 second, I just want to cover one last article. Texas moves to forcibly inoculate children. A bill introduced to Texas that would allow children to consent to receiving vaccines with any parental input. The bill, SB 63, titled Relating to Consent to Immunization of Certain Children, would allow for consent to immunization by a child if they are pregnant or is the custodial parent of a child. It also notes the healthcare provider or facility may rely on a written statement of the child containing the grounds on which the child has the capacity to consent. Just absolutely ridiculous, as we saw Governor Rick Perry make forcibly inoculate Gardasil shots for little girls, 11 and 12-year-olds.
And boys, running wild.
Yeah, and she tried to pass that off as being legal, and the state Senate and legislature really came after him, and he said, okay, I'm sorry, I retract that. It's ridiculous. Gardasil shot, is a HPV shot. I think it's a HPV, a women's It's for women. And they were giving it to little boys. They mandate that the boys get the same shots. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Well, before moving on, I just want to bring this up because I just happened to see this New York Times. Folks, remember the articles that we wrote back in September of 2012 about the situation in Benghazi, and remember when on this program, and I know it was on this program.
What happened?
I said on this program that Saudi Arabia was behind the arms shipment to Syria, that we were providing the military might and muscle on behalf of Saudi Arabia to topple Syria. We were doing Saudi Arabia's work for them. You remember that? And I got emails saying you're crazy. You've got no proof. Well, the New York Times just came out. Guess what? Saudi Arabia just financed or just admitted, I should say, to financing a large purchase of infantry weapons from Croatia and funneled them to anti-Assad rebels in Syria. And so, with the hope of breaking the bloody stalemate that has allowed Assad to cling to power, this is what the New York Times is saying. So the weapons began reaching the anti-Assad terrorists in December via shipments shuttled through Jordan. This is coming from the New York Times.
And Turkey, right?
Well, why we said Turkey, absolutely Turkey. The staging areas in Turkey for the use in Syria, but now they're going through Jordan. And people were saying, well, this isn't true. So there you have it. Now the New York Times is coming, 6 months after the fact and admitting, yeah, I guess it is true. The officials said multiple plane loads of weapons left Croatia, multiple plane loads since December, when many Yugoslav weapons previously unseen in the Syrian civil war began to appear in videos posted by the anti-Assad rebels on YouTube. So now,
was it like the situation where the shells had U.S., made in the USA on them?
Well, you could tell they're like
Yugoslav
weapons. Yeah, I mean, this is ridiculous. But so who's behind? And I asked the question one time, well, who's behind Saudi Arabia? And I remember a couple of web forums saying, well, this is all nonsense. Really? Look at what's taking place here. You've got the Syrian, or you've got the Croatian or Yugoslavian weapons. Weapons from Croatia or via Croatia. You've got American weapons. You've got shells from France and Germany, and even from Iraq. You got a whole bunch of stuff. So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at nation building. This is not a civil war in Syria. This is a manufactured war in Syria. So I just want to press that home to people who still don't believe the Benghazi story was about weapons running via the United States.
Yeah. And we see the Syrian situation will not come to an end until Assad is overthrown. And that's that. We are going to go to phone calls. 661-244-9839 is the number.
We want you to tell us. We want you to tell us what's on your mind, and what you think give us a February 2013 recap. So
a month in review is what we titled the show, and as well as covering news that we covered already, and some we're going to get to. We're going to take a look back at the news of the month, the important things that happened, how fast things change from one month to another, from one day to another. But with that, we'll go to the phones. We're going to go to area code 903 first, then we're going to go to Scott, 903. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, gentlemen, how you doing? This is Rob. Lots to say, so I've been trying to call in for days now, so let me just kind of rattle off some things from the last, couple shows. First, I love what you guys do. I hear that you guys have a lot of technical problems and stuff like that. I'd love to help. Grab my number. I did podcasting for a long time. As far as the architect thing is concerned, you need to understand, which a lot of people are missing, this is what I call the great leveling. What's going to happen here globally is we have a country that was the big dog that now needs to be shrunk. And if you look at the Foreign Affairs magazine, they'll talk about that America needs austerity and that sort of thing. So what needs to happen is the unsustainability of America needs to be drained. That's why you're seeing all the businesses being allowed to be left, or actually, like the Gibson factory that you mentioned, is actually being pushed out of the United States. We're funding the relocation of the GE plants and that sort of thing. So that's really what's happening. We're seeing the United States being allowed to go down to a third world society. That's called post-consumer economy.
What we call her allowed, or what we call her allowed, or orchestrated?
Oh, it's absolutely being orchestrated. I would say allowed because the power changed with Kissinger, basically handing the scepter to China to be the new superpower.
Right. Very good. Okay.
Next thing, I've seen you guys. You had a power failure recommendation on that is the Survival Podcast, episode 1039 and 1040. They did a battery backup episode. You can find that on Solar 1234 and Battery 1234 for the replays on that. Steve Harris did a great rundown of over 6 hours total on how to do battery backups and that sort of thing. So I recommend that. I think there's a huge
let me ask you a
gap.
question. Wait, hold on a second. Can I ask you a question on this?
Sure,
power
absolutely.
failures. Okay, when we have backup generators that, yesterday, for example, last evening was actually a pretty wide power failure. It wasn't directed at us, but when you have a generator backup that fails because of, it fails. I mean, we've got generator power backup, but it was the first two times we had improper, I don't want to say wiring, but that's the best way for me to describe it. Now, would generator backup, would we still need to look at these even though we have generator backup?
Well, it kind of depends on really it really kind of depends what the failure is. I have a lot to tell you guys about podcasting. You guys talked about programming stuff and interviewing. Like I said, take my number down. I'm more than willing to give you guys a hand. It really depends on what the failure was on that sort of setup. Redundancy is really the name of the game. I did a sufficiencies show for a while, and there's a laundry list of things that can go down when you're going live. I did Blog Talk Radio too, so just having backups and, like, for instance, having your phone line go straight in and then running your console on your computer instead of running it in Skype. So the computer goes down, your entire show goes down. Just stuff like that can really help you, be resilient kind of on different things that go wrong. When your computer freezes, everything doesn't hose up on you, that sort of thing.
Right. Okay.
So the next gap I see, and this is pretty a pretty common one as far as Christian shows, is I see a big gap in sustainability. God sent us to do a homestead years back, and I still hear very little of that. It's kind of like the redheaded stepchild of Christian shows. So recommendations on that would be the Survival Podcast, Zero to Prepared. It's episode 1056 and 1057. Jack goes through everything you need to do from very beginning. I like the caller yesterday. There's preppers out there, I guess. But it just seems to be very lacking on solutions, what people can do. I've said for a long time that if the devil can take the noose, this is always a control system, right? So if the devil can noose you somehow by finances or food or what have you, then you really can't ever do God's will. So I think that's really a key, and I think that's the one thing that really kind of scares me about the Christian community is they have this idea that somehow manna is going to drop out of the sky. You got to be prepared. You got to be one of those virgins that actually have their lampstands full ready for when God tells you to do something.
Can you repeat that? Can you repeat the beginning of that again? I missed you said one of the problems you see with the broadcast, the Christian broadcast, is, and I missed the part of that.
It's just a lack of talking about sustainability, like actually being prepared, how to prepare, basic stuff. Because a lot of people talk. Yeah, a lot of people talk about the problem, but then they get so comatose that they don't know what to do. I did. If you guys Google self-sufficient and sustainable, I did a show for a long time. There's 60 hours out there, guys, on exactly how to prepare. If you don't use me, use Jack's survival podcast. Use Jason Akers, self-sufficient gardener. There's a lot of people out there that'll give you a lot of information to help.
I'm not sure how long you've been listening. But we've had Stan Deo. Yeah. I mean, we've had Stan Deo. We've had Holly Deo on before. And for people who talk about preparedness in many different aspects, but my belief is that that's an individual, what the Lord guides you to do, what He leads you to do, what His will is, in my belief, is the way people should prepare. But I do agree that the information should be provided if the people are led to prepare as to what and where and how they can do that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think it's just kind of like just the basics on kind of, what somebody could actually do. Other things is just kind of basics of learning kind of the architecture of these guys, essentials, the Anglo-American establishment, tragedy and hope. And I haven't heard him come on yet, but if you really want some science dropped on the whole, mechanism of the fall and who's doing it and that sort of thing, Alan Watt from Cutting Through the Matrix actually is just the smartest guy that I've heard that can break down exactly how this happened. Get him on the show.
Tragedy. Caller, you mentioned tragedy and hope. Did I hear you correctly?
Right.
Tragedy
yes,
and hope.
absolutely.
Okay, that's Professor Carol Quigley's encyclopedic book is what you're referring to?
Yeah, absolutely. And then he has another one called The Anglo-American Establishment, which kind of talks about the creation of the groups that ended up, being, the Royal Institute of International Affairs and that sort of thing.
Right. Now, just for listeners to understand, Carol Quigley is dead. Carol Quigley has passed away. Carol Quigley is boasted about the socialization of America and the takedown of America through things like the Federal Reserve and through the communist agenda, but refined to the point of even going out, expanding into the Rockefeller, Rothschilds, and so on, those families. I mean, you have to understand the scope of this tragedy and hope, which is the blueprint for the destruction of this country. But Quigley kind of made it sound as if this is out in the open and very proud. So it's not like a covert blueprint. But so yes, caller, very, very good, and I thank you for bringing that up because we have mentioned tragedy and hope in this show before, but we'll certainly look into getting that guest on. Go ahead, caller. Didn't mean to interrupt. You've got the floor still.
Not at all. I know you guys have a lot of calls, so I'm just kind of trying to rattle off a bunch of things from a lot of different shows. A couple last things. The SDR is actually kind of the basis of what the one world currency is actually going to look like. It's a combination of a bucket of currencies, commodities, and that sort of thing. You can look that one up. And I learned a good deal from the podcast Answer Man podcast with, I think it's Cliff Ravenhill or something like that. You guys may want to listen to that. He has a lot of great stuff to say about that and a huge archive on kind of just learning how to podcast and that sort of thing. So, gentlemen, fight the fight. Don't look at the numbers. Don't worry about the money. Podcasting doesn't make it. And if you need my help, write down my number. I'm more than willing to help you guys.
Yeah, we've got your number. We will and certainly we'll give you a call. We have had engineers We've paid engineers. We have the best of equipment. We have redundancy built in, even out of country redundancy. I'm sure you're understanding of that. So, but certainly we can contact you and we'll discuss this certainly off air. So we appreciate that. Thank you so much for your offering of your assistance.
Absolutely. Have a great one, guys.
You too. Good call.
Absolutely.
Very good call. And we got a few minutes left before break, 4 minutes. Scott dropped off the line. We're going to go to Long Island. Dave in Long Island. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. We're going to go to Long Island. Dave.
Hey, how you doing, Joe? Doug?
Hey, my friend. Good to hear you.
Good to hear you guys. Oh. Yeah, I got a couple of minutes, right? Real fast, I guess. What do you want to hear? You want to hear prophecy or me raging?
Well,
prophecy, anything to do with the Pope or anything? Or?
Well, what do you think about the Pope? I was thinking about you, Dave. What do you think about the Pope? What's going on there? Prophecy?
I kind of agree what Gray said the other night about, I don't know, some people in my church think that he's not going to be the anti-Pope, that the church is going to go underground, is going to be persecuted. I'm seeing stuff, and I think it just might be, the next Pope might be the anti-Pope, and I think we're going to get persecuted big time.
Well, let's hear what let's hear what you're feeling and seeing.
Well, I came up with something here that somebody turned me on to. Real quick, the false prophet will now take over the seat in Rome. My dearly beloved daughter, the schism within the Catholic Church, as foretold, will now be witnessed for all the world to see. The departure of my dearly beloved Holy Vicar Pope Benedict XVI marks the beginning of the end. I have through you, my chosen prophet, over the last 2 years, tried to prepare my church on earth for this sad event. In no way do I endorse this. This is all for discernment. Discernment. Everybody has to use discernment, even me. The Messianic elite have grasped control over my church, and they will wield the most wicked deceit upon Catholics. The keys of Rome are now within my hands, having been passed over to me by my Father. I will direct all of my followers so that the truth can be sustained and that my holy word remains intact. The false prophet will now take over the seat in Rome, and my word, just as it was in my time on earth, will be treated as heresy. Make no mistake, for as the deceit is presented to the world as if the new reign represents the truth, you, my daughter, will suffer terribly in my holy name, just as the prophets which came before you. My followers must remain calm and pray for the salvation of all of my most sacred servants who will be caught up in this abomination. I call on them to respond as follows. Continue to follow my teachings, never waver from the word of God, remain loyal to your sacred duties, and administer the holy sacraments as you have been instructed by me. The teachings of the Catholic Church, based on its formation by my Apostle Peter, remain infallible. Now this will change once the foundation is rocked by the changes to come. Shortly you will no longer recognize my church, and you will feel very uncomfortable when you witness how my holy word will be tampered with. So that's just one little prophecy right there.
Now, Dave, where'd this prophecy come from, if you know?
You want the website or anything? It's the one.
No, I mean, was it a Catholic priest, just a person, a vision, a dream,
I think it might be coming from Mary to her. I don't even know the person. Okay. But it kind of makes a little sense to me. I kind of feel that this just might happen.
So, we are actually without a sitting pope right now, as Benedict stepped down, and we're waiting.
We have a vicar, or I'm not sure what you would. Well, I'm not sure, Dave, what you would call that, and I should have remembered from my seminary days. But
he's got a caretaker of the. That doesn't matter. The
caretaker of the Vatican. Well, I mean,
let me just read this. Can I just read this real quick?
Go ahead.
Can I just say this? Sure. They will say that he was guilty. This is what I really heard too, and I heard from other realms. they will say that he was guilty of a crime of which he is totally innocent. Now, understand, everybody, the commies, the homos, they want to infiltrate the Boy Scouts. They want to get into the Cub Scouts. They love new meat. These perverts out there love new meat. You got to understand that. I had said some time ago, Pope Pius XIII heard Jesus and Satan talking and saying, "I will have your church in 100 years." He came up with the Saint Michael prayer. Pope Leo XIII, back in the late 1800s, said that it had to be said after every low mass. When the new Vatican II came into effect, it was totally disregarded, and it was never said at all after that. People do pray that, but it is not done in the masses said throughout this country after every low mass. So total disregard for what he had said. So the communists, the pedophiles, all of them infiltrated the church. I mean, where else would you, if you want to have so much sex with boys and everything and that, where else could you get so much fresh young meat than by becoming a priest and being so close to these little young boys? I mean, that's like hitting a home run for these perverts. So just know that these priests, it's been infiltrated, just like the Boy Scouts and the Cub Scouts and everything else were being infiltrated from every which way. So, I just want to let that be out.
Dave, let me speak a little bit on your behalf, though, just real quick, okay, because I want to say this. I've got a great deal of respect for Catholics who are true Christians, okay? And we're not talking about the Catholics, the Catholic religion. We're talking about men who have corrupted the seat of the Vatican and the conclave and that entire Vatican City. Are we not, Dave? I mean, or am I misrepresenting of what you're saying?
No, totally. Right here, I got another thing from Akita, Japan, where the Blessed Mother, it's recognized as an apparition by the Blessed Mother in the Catholic Church, Akita. But for your discernment, again, this is what she said to a nun in Akita, Japan, back in 1973, the beginning of abortion. The work of the devil will infiltrate even into the church in such a way that one will see cardinals opposing cardinals and bishops against other bishops. The priests who venerate me will be scorned and opposed by their confreres. Churches and altars will be sacked. The church will be full of those who accept compromises, and the demon will press many priests and consecrated souls to leave the service of the Lord. I mean, I went into a church one time, and I seen on an altar a triangular stone, a stone. This many years ago, underneath the altar was a stone. There was no cross, nothing. Not even a Protestant cross. Usually, not even that, a bare cross. This thing had a stone under it, and it gave me the eerie creeps.
Yeah, that would. Wow. Okay,
we're up against the top of the hour break on this thing.
You want to hold on?
Yeah.
You want to hold over? All right.
Could I say one last prophecy of this? Thank you.
I'm going to put you on hold. We're going to go to break, and I'll bring you back. All right?
Thank you.
Oh, where you are. All right.
All right. Put him on hold. Let me get up the bumper music, and we'll be right back. You're listening to the Hagmann and Hagmann Report this last day of February 28, 2013. We'll be back with your calls and more. Stay with us.
Hi folks, Doug Hagmann here. You might know me as the co-host from the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, or as a frequent guest on Coast to Coast AM with George Norrie. If you're like me, you're tired and confused over today's headlines. You just don't know where to turn for accurate, concise information about really what's going on, what's truly going on in today's society. If you don't know where to turn for accurate, well-researched, and properly vetted news, I've got a suggestion. In fact, it's a requirement. Bookmark Canada Free Press. That's CanadaFreePress.com on the internet. It's just not for Canada. It's for news across the world. Judy McLeod, founding editor, has put together a vast array of talented writers like Kelly O'Connell, Daniel Greenfield, Dr. Eileen Johnson-Powell, a lot of guest columnists, very talented writers. Folks, that's Canada Free Press at CanadaFreePress.com. Now mobile friendly. Follow on Facebook, because without America, there is no free world. Folks, I'd like to direct you to HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's HomelandSecurityUS.com. That's our home base for our radio show. One of the people that, or one of our sponsors, I guess is the way to put it, that keeps us on the air. What a wonderful couple, Carl and Lori Granlund. Granlund Firearms, GranlundFirearms.com. I've spoken about them before. They're great people. Visit their website, GranlundFirearms.com. They're from British Columbia. So if you're listening up in Canada, check them out. Check out their gun stock list. Look at their photo gallery on their website, and certainly sign their guest book telling them that you heard about them on this program, the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. And while you're there, too, check out the T-shirts and hats, the news that they have. And, again, I got to tell you, look at the pictures, some of the most beautiful pictures I've seen. That's GranlundFirearms.com. Go to HomelandSecurityUS.com, click on the box where it says Granlund Firearms, and tell them that Doug and Joe sent you.
Hold on to your seats. The Hagmann and Hagmann flight is now taking off. Doug and Joe Hagmann have cleared the runway of TSA agents, jihadists, political crackpots, and global elitists. Now get ready for some real news. Here they are, Doug and Joe Hagmann.
And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to hour number 2 of this February 28, 2013 edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. This is a month in review. The first hour we covered a lot of important news of today, and we've been taking phone calls, and we're going to be taking a look back on important news throughout the month. Before the end of the hour, we had Dave on the line. We're going to bring him back on, but before I do, I just want to say this, and this is nothing against Dave or anybody else who listens or reads these prophecies of...
and Joe, give Dave a chance to respond to after you say this. Get his opinion on this, too.
I'm just very wary of anything that is not in the Bible. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm take everything to the Lord in prayer is what you should do. But I'm just wary of these prophecies, but I've seen many that seem to be accurate or foretell future events in a way that is odd. So, but either way, Dave, bringing you back on, you had a third.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, and God bless you both, and everybody else in the chat room and out there in God's land out there, and even you evil people, evildoers. I understand firmly, Joe. And I'm not taking this. This is not written in stone. This is not written in stone to me. I don't expect anybody to really believe this. Could be all made up, made up by the person who received this. So I don't endorse this at all. I'm just like Pierre said, food for thought, something to chew on. Take it like that. Yeah. But I just want to say that They will say that he was guilty of a crime of which he is totally innocent. Again, I'll say this. I don't know. I feel that he was pressured to leave. I think I can't explain it. I don't want to get all into my feelings or whatever. But he is old, but there's a reason why he left. I don't understand it all. I don't think anybody's going to know until we get to the other side. But they must not fret, although, all right, now I'm going to skip that. The next year will be very cruel and very distressing for you, my beloved disciples, and my last true pope. He who was maliciously and deliberately plotted against has been treated just as I, Jesus Christ, was beaten and scourged. They will now try to kill him just as they killed me. They will say that he was guilty of a crime of which he is totally innocent. So I'm not going to go into the rest of that. It just instructs the church and everything like that. But it's saying that he was guilty of a crime, and I kind of feel that somebody like Obama would probably use that against the Pope to destroy the church, to destroy him. I think they would use that. I think there's cardinals, forgive me, oh Lord, there's cardinals and bishops that probably hate the Pope. There's nuns out there I know that want to become priests, that want to change things, and I know that they probably want this Pope out, and so we'll see from there. But can I go on to something else from the third secret of Fatima? And this goes out to all you evildoers out there. And again, I do believe this, but to you people out there, I'm not putting this on anybody. Food for thought. The children of Fatima were taken into hell. And it says something like this. So this is something for the evil people should really think about. She opened her hands once, and she has been doing. The rays of light seemed to penetrate the earth, and we saw as it were a sea of fire. Plunged in this fire were demons and souls of the damned in human form, like transparent burning embers, all blackened or burnished bronze, floating around in the conflagration, now raised into the air by the flames that issued from within themselves together with great clouds of smoke, now falling back on every side like sparks and huge fires, without weight or equilibrium, amid shrieks and groans of pain and despair, which horrified us and made us tremble with fear. It must have been this sight which caused me to cry out, as people say they heard me. The demons could be distinguished from the souls of the damned by their terrifying and repellent likeness to frightful and unknown animals, black and transparent like burning coals. This vision lasted but an instant. How can we ever be grateful enough? All right, okay. So that's just a little something of what hell I do believe would probably be like. You can. I think most people probably maybe not believe that, but I think you can probably believe that that's probably how it is. And to all you people out there, I'm sorry. What?
No,
what,
Dave. I was told this by once again a very good friend. Hell is definitely a very real location, but and think about this. Hell is a place where logic and reason does not exist.
Nor do any attributes of God, godly attributes.
Right.
Which is a lot, and I'll explain it later the way I understand it, but it has a lot to do with the way you feel, your strength, because we're given strength by God. But go ahead, Dave. Sorry.
Yeah.
I went on Tribulations show before. I got attacked. My sound and everything, like sometimes with you, and I know I'm mocked, and I know they know who I am and everything like that. But I went to the doctor. I had to renew my blood pressure medicine. I'm sorry to get into this, but I had to renew my blood pressure medicine. So I go to the doctor. They were going to do blood tests. I didn't fast. She didn't do the blood work. I didn't get these 2 cancer tests. I don't care. And so the girl takes it, whatever. She takes it. Blood pressure is normal. Then the doctor comes in in about 3-5 minutes. She takes it. Your blood pressure is low. I said, what is it? Something over 50 over 80, something? What? She goes, yeah. She says, are you sick? I says, no. She goes, well, I want you to get an abdominal ultrasound, something about an aneurysm. Well, I feel great. I ain't going back. That's it. I got my blood pressure. She put it over there. I'm going to go to Kmart tomorrow. I'm going to get it checked on a machine out there and see. I mean, maybe she's practicing for Obamacare or something like that. Maybe she's getting, maybe they fax her something. She takes it, the nurse, and then all of a sudden it drops down to really low like that. It don't make sense to me. But I'm not even scared. I felt a little funny, but when they started messing around with me, when I was on Tribulation Show, and then I burnt my pasta sauce, I just started to get enraged, and my power of the Holy Spirit came on, and then Tribulation. I heard that beautiful praising the Lord song or something, and I used to be a drummer, and I started drumming with my 2 parakeets over there, and I'm drumming on my legs, and I'm I'm going like
wait,
unbelievable. I'm rocking
Dave,
this place.
You didn't grab your 2 parakeets and use them as drumsticks, did you? I mean, you said
no,
you
I'm saving them for my last dinner. I'm saving them, guys, for my last dinner.
You had me worried there for a second. All right, my friend. Well, look, you got to take care of your health because we have to be both physically and mentally and spiritually strong. We have to be spiritually, mentally.
I'm strong. The Lord saved me. I should have died. I said this a few times. I should have died about 4 times in my life. He saved me for this time. If He wants to keep me here, He'll keep me here. I won't have an aneurysm. That's the way I believe. I'm sorry. That's the way I'm believing. I got cured another time. I'm putting it in His will. I'm be 61 years old pretty soon, and that's the way it is. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to be mean to anybody or you, Doug, taking your advice, but that's the way it is. I'm putting my life in His hands. If He wants me to stay here, and I think He does, I think He really wants me to stay and maybe face the guillotines or something like that, and I will. I will not deny my Lord, you evildoers out there, if you think the guillotine is going to scare me, because the Lord has shown me great, great miracles, and look at His glory that He has done on this earth. I'm sorry.
That's right.
Absolutely. With that, Dave, God bless you, my friend. Take care. Thanks for your call.
God bless everybody.
I'll
keep you in my prayers. That's all I can do for you. God bless.
And us for you.
Something, he should have died a few times, and he's here for a reason. Well, there's times where you and me were in some pretty compromising situations and came out smelling like roses when the should have been the other way around.
I don't think that smell was roses, but okay, go on.
And to add to that, I this week had a close friend, an old friend, pass away. And it's been a reoccurring theme in our city with a lot of people that I know, especially this last year. And
heroin overdoses.
Right. And
or drug overdoses or whatever.
All the stupid things I've done, the way I used to jeopardize or not care, whether it was driving recklessly, just the immature things you do when you're a kid getting into trouble. I mean, it could have so easily happened to me in a different way. Why am I here, is a question I ask. Well, and I think I know now, but that's something I used to ask when these things would happen. But with that, I think we had Scott back up, and now he's gone again. So no, here he is. We're going to go to Scott. Scott, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, bless you guys in Jesus' name.
God bless you. What's on your mind?
Yeah, I wanted to just share with Dave to definitely look into the Hallelujah Acres diet. It's scripture influenced, and from what I've done study on, it's definitely worth looking into. Same thing with checking out what Dr. Wallach has to say.
All right. And that's kind of like very much like a Mediterranean diet, as I understand it. Isn't that kind of close to it?
Well, you do a lot of juicing, and you want to stick to it and adhere to an organic diet. But I mean, they have a lot of different YouTube videos, and they have a book that a lot of people with a lot of different diseases have been cured from. There's just a lot of information out there, and this one is scripture.
Yeah, go ahead, caller. Or Scott, sorry.
Yeah, it's scripture influenced, and when everybody gets a chance, look up Hallelujah Acres Diet, and there's a book that you probably want to get to.
All right, we'll do that. In fact, thank you.
Yeah, I want to write that down.
On top of that, it's just what you were saying before about Saudi Arabia exporting their influence here to the United States to quash our belief in the Lord Christ Jesus, because they believe in the moon god, and even Satan can appear as an angel of light, and that's exactly what happened with Muhammad. And again, it's an issue of spiritual maturity, and if you have to physically harm and if not kill people because of their beliefs, I'll be happy to die professing the name of Yeshua HaMashiach, because he is my Lord, he is my Savior, and he redeems me.
Okay. Now, okay. You know what, Scott, you at least on our end, it just kind of went blank there for a minute, and we just got the tail end of that. Do you want to repeat that? I'm sorry to ask you to repeat that, but do you want to repeat what you just said?
Not a problem at all. I mean, it comes down to an issue of spiritual maturity. And with Islam and the Saudis exporting their influence here in the United States, it should be no surprise. We have Hegel, who's a Muslim, and Obama, which lies about everything, and he's definitely a part of Islam. They believe in the moon god, and even Satan can appear as an angel of light, and that's exactly what happened with Muhammad. And we need to stand firm in our Lord and Savior, Yeshua HaMashiach, because he's my Savior, he's our Savior, and he has redeemed me.
Absolutely. And just a minor correction, it's Brennan who is alleged to be the Muslim. Hegel is just Hegel is Hegel, but it's Brennan who you referenced as the Muslim, and of course that does comport with everything else. So
I definitely appreciate you correcting me, sir.
All right, not a problem. Is there anything else that you want to say while you have the chance?
Absolutely. I just want to say it to everybody in the Hagmann and Hagmann site, just to respect each other. We all have different viewpoints. We all come to these truths and conspiracies in different ways. And, again, respect each other and love each other, because of hope, faith, and love, the most important is love.
Exactly. And you know what, thank you very much for your call. We're going to cut you loose. Very much. Respect each other. It doesn't take that much to respect one another. It really doesn't. It doesn't take that much to keep topics on an intellectual, conversational plane, as opposed to denigrating it into a doctrinal argument that does not do anything for either party or any of those involved. No one's going to win friends, influence people, and convert others through constant barraging, nagging, and throwing up various comments, whether it's in the chat room or wherever. So and respect each other. That's such great advice. And look, we all come to our different levels of understanding at different times. So there's a matter of patience that needs to be applied as well.
Yeah, very correct. I'm going to touch on this piece of news, and we're going right back to calls. A rare superbug emerging in the U.S. elicits advisory warning from the CDC. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention is alerting clinics of an emerging untreatable multi-drug resistant organism in the United States. There are many forms of carbenium resistant Enterobacteriaceae, CRE. But of the 37 forms reported in the U.S., 15 have been reported in less than a year. Now, the mortality rate of this is somewhere between 40 and 50%, I think I saw somewhere. It's 40 or 50%. I know I saw that in one place. But the CDC goes on to say that these things live in water, soil, and the human gut. These superbugs have developed high levels of resistance to antibiotics. Individuals who usually develop CRE infections are those who are taking antibiotics and getting significant medical treatment for other conditions. Now, I've seen many articles, a few on Natural News by Mike Adams and InfoWars on Alex+Jones, on the huge amounts of antibiotics being prescribed that are creating superbugs in the past. And I wonder how much that ties into what we are seeing with this superbug. But this is something to keep your eye on. I definitely would. And there's many other articles on this. And this other one here from NBC News says this rare bug is resistant to nearly all last resort antibiotics, and has prompted government health officials to renew warnings for U.S. hospitals, nursing homes, and other healthcare settings. Okay. They also say it can be in your body for a year before it
manifests any symptoms. You know, and I got to tell you this: I was talking with somebody who's in a hospital, just in the metropolitan Pittsburgh. It's in the VA type hospital. Who it was determined. Now, this never made any news whatsoever. How about Legionnaire's disease being running rampant and actually killing or causing the deaths of 5 people in this one hospital in metropolitan Pittsburgh? Did we see this on the news? No. What is going on with this Legionnaire's disease now? And as I had asked some questions with some people, with some staff, it come to find out it's just not that one hospital, and it's not limited to, of course, VA hospitals, but other hospitals as well. That there have been cases of Legionnaire's disease reported with mortality at each location. So what's going on here with these super viruses or the resurgence of these viruses?
Well, this from Wired Magazine. Antibiotic overuse may increase superbug evolution rate. This is from May last year. And it talks about flooding our environment with antibiotics. And people might not know this, but it's in the waters. It is in some of the foods we eat because of what they feed the animals. So it's not actually just taking the antibiotics or taking antibiotics when sick. There's more to it than that. And there are more ways of ingesting antibiotics than you would know, that I even know. I'm still learning, how these things go through. They say, antibiotics, drugs consumed by people end up in sewage. They go through.
Well, people flush medication down their toilets, and they throw it out in the garbage, and it leaches into the soil. You've got, like you said, the injections into animals, the food supply. All of this is making us more antibiotic resistant, or resistant to the effectiveness of antibiotics. So anyway, let's change topics here.
You want to go back to calls?
Yeah, let's do that.
All right. Area code 205. You're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Good evening, gentlemen. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Fantastic. Hey, this is Ken in Birmingham. Hey, I really like the really cute station break there when you have Dr. Laurie Roth on there, and she talks about clearing the runway there for you guys to start the show. It's really cute. Did you guys write that, or did she write it, or what?
No, actually, Laurie had done the copy on that, and she did it all. And Patrick from Carey Engineering did the background, and that's her song. Actually, she's actually singing that song. She's got, and a lot of people don't know that she was big in the country western music scene before her radio career, and that's her singing as well. That's her song, which she has licensed us to use for our program. So, what a great lady.
Yeah, I thought that was her singing. She just needs to slightly recut it and maybe take it even further. Like, we want to thank you for flying Hagmann and Hagmann Airways tonight. And if you put your seat in the upright position and store your tray table, we'll be taking off shortly. All that spiel that they give you, before you do a takeoff on the airlines. Maybe just
exactly.
Yeah. Hey, I'd like to ask you guys a question, and I don't want to go over old information, but I just thought I'd ask this question. I hear you every now and again say something to the effect like, whoever the man is at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, whatever his real name is, if he's a real citizen, et cetera, et cetera. Have you guys seen that documentary DVD that was entitled Dreams from My Real Father?
Yes.
Oh, you have? Okay.
I have not, but I've heard lots about it.
Yes, I would highly recommend that to anybody that has not seen that. Dreams from My Real Father, done by a guy by the name of Joel Gilbert. And I think if you Google Dreams from My Real Father, it will take you directly to his website there, where you can see some amazing pictures. When you see Mr. Obama's picture, juxtaposed against the late card-carrying communist Frank Marshall Davis, you will see a tremendous amount of resemblance. And I've told people, in my opinion, after you watch that DVD, if you're not about 95% convinced, as I am, that that's who his real father is, that I'll buy you a steak dinner. I don't know what you guys think.
Well, Ken, I got to tell you this, a couple of things. And people, well, in the words of Ken, put your seat backs in their full upright position, because I'm going to tell you what I think, or I'm going to tell you what I've not only been told, but also have researched. But specifically, I've got some, as you know, sources within the venue, within the spy world, so to speak. And there are a couple of issues. Would you believe that there is eyewitness testimony and actually authenticated eyewitness testimony that saw Obama's alleged birth mother? Now, he was born, in August, I believe his birthday was, right? Obama, when did he say his birthday is? I don't have my notes.
Obama's birthday?
Yeah, I don't have my notes.
I don't remember.
All right, well, August, I believe it was.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it was in the summer.
Okay, but eyewitness testimony where his biological mother reportedly was wearing a bikini and showed no signs of being pregnant within 60 days of his alleged birth. All right, that's number one. Number two, Frank Marshall Davis, as everyone knows or should know, was very heavily into pornography and also S&M type of behavior. And if you don't know what S&M is, you're better off for it. But that said, it has been reported that and Dunham was a subject of Frank Marshall Davis in that type. In fact, there are photographs of Obama's mother in compromising positions with Frank Marshall Davis.
Right.
So, yes, we don't exactly. And the Dreams from My Real Father by Joel Gilbert, if you haven't seen that video, if it's still available or haven't gotten the DVD, I would urge everyone to get it. I'm not saying that's 100% right with what Joel Gilbert stated, but I'll tell you what, he makes a very good case that we don't know who this guy is.
Right.
And one more thing, too. Has anyone thought, too, going back to one thing I mentioned about the Perm Airport and the Russian, when he was on the Junior Center for Illinois, Obama, or whatever his name is, and he was on the U.S. Air Force plane that landed in Perm, Russia, in the Ukraine, and was stopped for 3 hours. The Russian KGB would not let him go, and they grabbed his passport, sat him down in a room for 3 hours. He was with Luger at the time. This is back, like I said, when he was a junior senator from Illinois, traveling on a diplomatic, I believe, passport. But there was something wrong with the passport. What if I told you that Obama, because of, at least from a passport perspective, Obama could be a British subject? Now, if you think about that, okay, let's just think about that for a moment. Am I saying that it is? No, I'm not. But there was rumors that, let's just say, for example, Obama is Obama, and his biological father was from Kenya at the time of his birth in 1961. Well, Kenya, being a colony of Great Britain, would make him, unless he renounced or changed his citizenship, a British subject. So now, think about that through the perspective or through the lens of what we're seeing today take place with our money supply and the fact that Obama and Congress is kicking the can down the road. And the return to Camelot, or the King Arthur type of British Empire, where the British Empire will never set and we will be subjugated back to Great Britain again. Who better to do it, or what type of person better to do it than a subject of the crown? Again, I'm not saying that this is, but this is something to think about.
I see your point. Yeah, very interesting. Okay, all right. Yeah, but I do recommend that to DVD. At one time, I was told that documentary was the largest selling documentary on Amazon, and I just went and looked a day or two ago. It's still out there on Amazon, or I'm sure you can probably find some used copies on eBay. But, yeah, I highly recommend that anybody who hasn't seen it, grab a copy of it and look at it. I think you'll find it very interesting. Well, all right, gentlemen, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
All right, my friend. God bless.
Yeah, you too. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks, Ken.
And you know what, Ken, or you know what this caller and Joe, Ken mentioned, isn't it amazing that 5 years after Obama has landed, or whatever his name is, because really, looking at it
from Barry, yeah.
He actually has three different names: Barry Obama, or Barack Hussein Obama II.
And there's a legitimate question if he actually rechanged his name to Barack Obama.
Correct.
Changed his name back.
He has not released any documents. We don't know, and so his name could very well be Barry Soetoro, or Barack Hussein Obama II, or there's Sabarka, as Jerome Corsi had found, and others traveling. That name was originated from another passport, with his mother's passport that he's traveling under as well. So we don't know technically what his legal name really is. We know what we're told it is, but we don't know what it really is. So, and those people might say, well, you saw his birth certificate. No, we saw a digital depiction of his birth certificate. But who saw the real thing? Reportedly, one reporter saw his actual hard copy birth certificate. Could that person authenticate it? Did that person have the ability to authenticate it? No. So who in the world is in the Oval Office with his finger on the button of our nuclear arsenal? Who in the world is in the Oval Office taking our country down, along with every one of these Republican and Democrats? Who's there? And why is no one asking these questions? When I'm saying no one, why is no one in power asking these questions? And I'll tell you why. Because, as I've often said, this country is a captured operation. We are a captured operation. We've already been taken over. The gates, the enemy are already inside the gates. And we have allowed this to take place. Not one instance of, hey, wait a minute, let's ask the right questions at the right time.
Yeah, you're right.
I get very passionate about this. Can you tell?
Not that we get the correct answers.
No. See, we would demand the right answers. We would demand the forensic analysis and authentication of who this man actually is.
Okay.
One more thing, though. Just let me throw one other thing out for you folks to think about. We talked about mind control.
Yeah.
And Manchurian candidates, didn't we?
Yes. Are you going where I think you're going?
Just for a second, just real quick.
This is what I wanted to go to anyway, so.
Oh, okay. Well, think about this. The CIA had, don't forget who Obama's alleged mother was, Madeline Dunham, right? She was up in Mercer Island, and she was in places where, without having to tell a tale that would take a long time, it's very possible that his mother and even his grandparents were involved in the Communist Party. But don't forget, back in that time period, in the 50s and the 60s, and think about this. I'm not saying this is what it is, but just think about this. Don't close your mind to things, because we don't know, really. But the CIA had a large monarch trauma-based mind control program, other mind control programs. Wouldn't it be consistent with programs like the CIA operated to groom, for example, people like Obama's mother, who happened to work with Geithner's father in microfinance? Do you think that's is that an accident? I don't believe in coincidences of that nature. But as we go through the lineage, what would you say? I mean, think about this. Could Obama not be, or is it possible that Obama could be a at one point, maybe they were grooming him as a CIA cutout or an operative. They actually created a legend for him. When I say a legend, I'm talking about a background, which is why we're not seeing any background right now, which is why, by the way, Brennan, who's been involved in the CIA for 25 years, is now coming back around and being put in that post. Why? Well, CIA all the way. So could Obama be a type of Manchurian candidate or a cutout from the CIA? Because don't forget, too, he was traveling in 1981, 81 to Pakistan. And where did he go after Pakistan? Did he go? Now, this is also during or shortly thereafter. Well, no, I'm sorry. This is during the shortly thereafter. This is during the Taliban and the Russian war in Afghanistan. So was he perhaps operating on behalf of the CIA? Because don't forget, no one really remembers his time at Columbia. Well, sure. And by the way, what Ken had mentioned, Dreams from My Real Father, the DVD, I believe gets into his Columbia years. Reverend James David Manning talks about his years at Columbia. Now, I don't have my notes. I've got a notebook, a regular notebook, spiral notebook that is filled with notes on. I don't have my notebook in front of me, so this is just from memory. But could it be that maybe Obama was a CIA type of operative? And but see what happens with CIA operatives is they get to a point where they can't stomach things, or they're not that good at various things, and they kind of get washed out. Where do CIA washouts often go, if not private industry? They go into diplomatic positions. That's right. So just some food for thought.
Okay. I thought you were taking us in another direction when you mentioned mind control.
I could take you in a lot of directions.
But an article I printed out for you.
I have it, don't I?
Government mind control may not be as far-fetched as it sounds. The Pentagon's DARPA researchers have learned to control rats' brains over the internet. Now, this might sound like something that is just a lab experiment that can only be applied to rats. Scientists have successfully captured the thoughts of a rat in Brazil and electronically transmitted them through the internet to the brain of a rat in the U.S. Now think about that. They have found a way to transmit information from one brain to another, thereby controlling the thoughts of its test subject.
So the medium is the internet, is what you're saying, or the pathway from one brain to another. The conduit is the internet.
They refer to the technique as a brain link. It's a $26 million study of a brain-machine interface that was funded by the Pentagon's DARPA program, and it ultimately hopes to have this technology available to humans. They go on to say, by linking human brains together, scientists believe they can combine brain power to solve problems for one person, too difficult for one person to handle. They can also do a lot of other things. Duke University's Medical Center neurobiologist, Mr. Nicholas, told Reuters he refers to the link as an organic computer, and scientists will first test it out on monkeys to determine its feasibility. But not all researchers are excited about the prospect of brain manipulation. Well, that's good to know. Having non-human primates communicate brain-to-brain raises all sorts of ethical concerns, one neuroscientist said. Reading about putting things in animals' brains and changing what they do, people rightly get nervous. Yeah, I'd say a little more than nervous. What this is, I mean, just imagine the people who say they hear voices, the Jesse Ventura episode they did on those Gwen Towers.
Oh, yeah.
If they can transmit a thought from one brain or a computer or their brains, that'd be the worst, to your brain. But it's more. It sounds like it's more than that, because this article says not that it just sends a message to the brain. It can control the thoughts. But how would they know that they're doing this only on mice or rats? How would they know it could control their thoughts? And the question is this technology, if implemented on humans, would it be suggestible or like a voice in your brain, or would it control your thoughts? But I suggest you guys do some research on this. There are several articles reporting on this, and there is actually a video showing that experiment of how this works on one of the articles. I think that was from NBC, but I'm not sure.
You know, since you're on that topic, there are a couple of things, and just yell when we have callers on hold.
We do have callers on hold.
All right, just real quick then. I just want to say this. At the time the Guatemalan experiments were taking place, the newly formed CIA, this is of course the predecessor to the OSS, was borrowing basically instructions or using the instruction manuals from 1930s Germany. And of course, the behavioral control programs back then were known as Project Artichoke. That's right, Artichoke, and MK Ultra. Those are the two main mind control type of experiments we've heard about. That's well documented. Those documents are authenticated. Artichoke is the agency reference for the study of special interrogation methods and techniques. These special interrogation methods have been known to include the use of drugs, chemicals, hypnosis, total isolation. You've heard of the, what do they call those, sensory deprivation tanks, in a form of psychological harassment.
Oh, yeah. The sensory deprivation is a key method of torture.
Right.
And what that is just pretty much isolation, no food or water until, and confusing you so you don't know what day, what time, what hour it is, you know.
And it's actually, yeah, you're right, and there's much more to it. But if we have callers, let's get to the callers. But I just find it very interesting and extremely important to really understand what the CIA has done, and in particular the mind control experimentations, because I believe we are all victims of trauma-based mind control to some extent, unwittingly,
right.
Of course.
More on a suggestible level. But, yeah, we're going to go to the phones, to 305 area code. The number to call in is 661-244-9839. And if you want to speak to the host, you want to speak to us, come on there, press 1 after you dial the number. That prompts us to know you want to be on air rather than listen, because a lot of people do listen via phone. Area code 305, we're coming to you next. You are live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hi. Hi, guys. You there?
Good evening. Yes, we are. What is on your mind tonight?
Oh, okay. Well, I came across an article that's published. It's updated today, and the link, I'm not on the chat, so I'll give the link so people in chat can look it up. It's www.worldwatch.org/node, NODE/5993. And what it is it says, U.S. leaders support Law of the Sea Treaty. It was updated today, February 28th. And what it is it's the big push now. It says, newly appointed U.S. leadership is promising to join a long-standing international agreement that oversees ocean resource and pollution disputes. And scrolling down, it says, during the confirmation hearings for Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski of Alaska asked whether the treaty would be a priority. Yes, it will be, and it will be because it is long overdue, Clinton said in response. If people start drilling in areas that are now ice-free most of the year, and we don't know where they can and can't drill or whether we can, we're going to be disadvantaged. And then it goes down. What this actually means is that the waters will come under the control of the UN. Okay? So if the waters become under the control of the UN, the way I see it, that can bring NATO troops, UN troops into our ports, okay? And I'm just saying this is a slippery slope. They would have control over fisheries. They would have control over the seaports. You know what I'm saying? So I just wanted to bring that up, that the big push now is for this law of the sea treaty. And anything that has to do with globalism and the UN always kind of raises the hair up on the back of my head. So I thought I would bring that up. Here's the big push now to push this through, because it says when you go down, it says, as we move forward to serious climate negotiations, countries will be very skeptical the administration can deliver on an agreement if we can't deliver on the law of the sea, which everyone knows was negotiated in our interest, Atram said. So this is how they're going to push through the Agenda 21, control over waters, control over everything, really. It just brings them right into the ports.
Well, I've done a lot of research on the law of the sea treaty, and I don't know if it is. I don't think they have signed it as law of the land
Not
yet.
yet. No. In fact, back in July of last year, they tabled it forever, so to speak, or put it on hold for forever.
But they have a backdoor.
Right.
It's
just
back,
like the arms
and
trade treaty.
And they're pushing it.
Yes,
okay.
Yes, they're signing on to this. Right, we understand that.
And also the Trans-Pacific Partnership was top on the Obama agenda in his second term.
Exactly.
Which is like the NAFTA of the Asia.
Yes, it's
and
the
US.
trade deal of all trade deals. It's the one where we get no say about nothing and the corporations rule the roost. It's basically what it is.
Sounds about accurate.
Yeah,
now,
exactly.
If people, the law of the sea treaty is, it originated as part of the United Nations back, I think it was back in the 70s. It became part of the UN, the agenda of the United Nations. So you're
I'll tell you what, it's going to run your small fishermen out of business. They're not going to be able to compete. Okay, they're not going to. They're going to be permitted out. Their catch is going to be limited. They're not going to be able to compete. It's the nail in the coffin for the small fishermen. So
right, and it had various levels of support through the years from the 70s to today. We're going to keep a close eye on this. Obama is internationalizing a lot of issues. The law of the sea treaty is but one of many initiatives. Will it become an actual treaty? Will it reach treaty status?
Will it be ratified?
Yeah.
I'm just bringing it up with it's red alert on yet another UN deal. You know,
we have to watch it. We have to watch it. It's an international treaty that does set some standards. Maritime commerce, it affects.
Well, they can come in. They can monitor your water. Okay, so I'm down here in the Keys, right? And if you're on water down here, I'm on a dry lot, but if people are on water, they're monitoring your water runoff. When it rains. Okay, so they can be coming around and testing your water. And so you could be fined if there's too much water runoff that goes into a canal or this or that. It's just going to be a way to tax people and tax people and tax people till we're all broke and in the poorhouse. That's basically it. And when you can't afford no more, they'll take your property and, whatever,
Right. Well,
anyway.
And yeah, it's the Agenda 21, if you will, for the near shore. So,
yep.
Well, very good.
Anyway,
well,
let me give you a little trivia here that's kind of interesting real quick. Over on Beast Watch News, I saw they had a little article posted up that was written by P.P. Simmons, and it says, Stunner, Obama to make triumphant entry into Jerusalem same day as Jesus did on a donkey. It says, Barack Hussein Obama will be making his triumphant entry into Jerusalem, his first since taking office, on the same day Jesus did, the 9th of Nisan, the 20th of March. Not only that, folks, Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey. Obama will be riding into Jerusalem as a Democrat. And what is the Democrat Party symbol? A donkey. Was this planned or merely coincidental? We report, you decide. So.
Right.
Interesting.
And we talked about that. In fact, that gives me a chance to correct this, because I kept saying, too, Obama will arrive in Israel the same day that the sacrificial lamb for Passover is chosen. What I didn't say is they don't practice the sacrifice of a lamb today. Okay, that's not that. I didn't say that. I kind of thought that was implied, apparently, but I apologize. But that's another piece of the puzzle, caller. That think about that, arriving the same day that they would.
Yeah, and as a Democrat, a donkey.
Exactly.
I kind of looked at that and I said, oh wow, Anyway, okay, thanks guys.
All right, very good.
Bye.
All right,
thanks for the call.
Yeah, look, the Law of the Sea Treaty is formerly known as the Third United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea. It's Unclosed 3, adopted 1982, purpose to establish a comprehensive set of rules governing the oceans and to replace previous UN conventions on the law of the sea. One in 1958 and another in 1960. And it was negotiated in the 70s, heavily influenced by, get this, the new international economic order. Okay, so are we crazy? No, I don't think so.
Not at all. Let's move on. We're almost at the top of the hour break, so we'll hold off on calls. 912, you are up next, and then 503. Folks, if you want to weigh in, give us a call. It's 661-244-9839.
We're being liberal with our time and your calls today, so definitely call on in.
I don't know how many of you guys saw this. Sarah Palin came out.
Of what?
Feds are stockpiling bullets to use against us. The U.S. will default on its economy. The real economic Armageddon looming before us is our runaway debt. And she claims that the federal government is stockpiling bullets for civil unrest.
Has she been talking to my DHS contact? Because that came out
I don't talk to her, so I don't know.
In the middle of last year, we were talking about this, and of course, it received this lukewarm response. Like, well, come on, well, Sarah, welcome to the party.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is take us out with an audio and bring us back in with a more important audio. I'm going to take us out with Max Kaiser talking about the bankster blunders beyond control.
This is a good audio clip, folks.
Right. Just to recap here, you had a jury trial here in the UK where the jury was too stupid to understand the instructions from the judge. Like they didn't know what reasonable doubt meant. So they were dismissed. They have to retry this case because the jury is too stupid. It reminds me of the Frank Quattrone defense. Frank Quattrone of Credit Suisse, during the dot-com scandal, he was engaged in illegal laddering of IPOs, and he got off because the jury was too stupid to understand his financial crimes.
Well, that's a little bit more complicated. These are very, very, very basic, simple, fundamental concepts of jury law. Is guilt beyond a reasonable
doubt.
doubt.
Use the phrase a deficit of comprehension or deficit of basic understanding.
Yes.
It was a polite way of saying you're freaking brain dead, get out of my courthouse before we throw you in jail for being too stupid.
Well, in this case, there were thousands of emails between thousands of traders, or actually a few dozen traders, saying, set the LIBOR rate at a rate that is not true. Rig it for me. And they're saying that this is somehow complicated, that we can't do anything about it because there are signs of innocence outside this circle of the actual crime.
Right, there's an innocent act being committed somewhere in the universe, so should we apply a standard of guilt to this admission of guilt by HSBC?
Yes.
HSBC admitted that they were laundering money and financing terrorism. But somebody somewhere did an innocent act, something in a parallel universe perhaps. So can we call the HSBC guilty? Can we say, oh wow, there's 30,000 Mexicans headless because of the money laundering that HSB aided and abetted as terrorists, but should we care? Because after all, somebody committed an innocent act somewhere, so they're not guilty. You know, the same thing going back to the Bush administration and the Obama administration. Send in a drone, go murder somebody because somebody might not know what's going on if, in fact, we look at the stupid we're done and revert it inside a picture of a refraction of a mirror because we're that stupid.
Survival of the fittest. In any and all situations, survival is your number one priority. That requires being tough and thinking smart. And the folks at Freeze Dry Guy are going to help you do just that. They have the long-range patrol ration entrees, what they call the Brick Pack. When you're in survival mode, it is absolutely the best item for your survival pack or bug-out bag. You can go farther, faster, and carry more food with the LRP cold weather ration entrees. Not only do these long-lasting, durable entrees help sustain you or your family through the harshest environment or situation, they are by far the most delicious of their kind. No contest. With a variety of tasty entrees, you can't beat the LRP Brick Packs. Let Freeze Dry Guy help you in your survival situations. Go to freezedryguy.com. That's freezedryguy.com or call 866-404-3663. That's 866-404-FOOD.
You better wake up fast and listen to this, America. The Obama campaign has launched attack squads disguised as truth teams dedicated to intimidating and silencing all political dissent carried over the internet that criticizes the Marxist Obama. Truth squads specifically focused on covering up Obama's endless trail of lies, corruption, and subversion, and using the Gestapo power of our own government to police and censor the internet and shut down websites that dare to carry the real truth about Obama's Marxist coup. Remember the names of these Gestapo-style agencies at work right there in your neighborhood: KeepingHisWord.com, KeepingGOPHonest.com, and AttackWatch.com. KGB, SS, and Gestapo-style police-state gangster organizations at work to silence the important voices of patriot dissent, some of which have already been shut down by Obama's orders. Adolf Hitler would have been proud. We're the 21st century Tea Party patriots.
Doug Hagmann. One guy that doesn't need a bullhorn to get your attention.
You want answers! I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to this third and final hour of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. This is the final day of February 2013. Folks, we're taking your calls to find out what you think is one of the most important or the most important news story or set of news items for the month of February, or even year to date, whatever you might prefer. Where are we at? Where are we at? What's taking place? How close are we to things going hot? Speaking of which, Steve Quayle, in his Q alerts, remember the financial insider we had on? You can listen to that program. We had him on one Friday for 2 hours. It was a great program. Madness has gripped the globe. This source goes by his the initial of his first name, V. Madness has gripped the globe, economic implosion that will rearrange the grand chessboard of fiat currency. Now, before I just touch on this, please, folks, if you haven't had the chance, definitely read the article. That part 1, part 2 should be out tomorrow. I'm going to do my best to get it out tomorrow, of the architects of our economic demise. But think about this. As madness has gripped the globe, it seems at the end of this lunacy will be an economic implosion that will rearrange the grand chessboard of fiat currency. And, of course, the U.S. dollar, as it stands right now, which is nothing more than a Federal Reserve note, essentially without value, technically without value, but its value lies in the free flow of oil and the promise thereof. But the coming day of reckoning, according to this V, will shatter the dreams of central bankers and crush the aspirations of politicians who hide their avarice in cloaked altruism and ignoramus ideas. How do you like that for a sentence? As the Fed has been purchasing mortgage-backed securities and pumping away with the QE infinity, they have once again created a problem that they themselves can never fix. And boy, it sounds very familiar. If one were to look at the money supply in this nation, one can see that deposit rates are far outstripping loan rates. Now think about that for a second. Deposit rates are outstripping loan rates. So there are more deposits than there are loans being made. So putting this in perspective, a normal person on the street, dead broke, no money in his pockets, Main Street America continues to be decimated, and yet bank deposit rates are at an all-time high. So what does this mean? When the crime lords at the Fed, Bernanke, are you listening, decided to buy mortgage-backed security, the deal was to purchase the accounts from primary buyers and leave the cash as a deposit at their account with the Fed itself, okay, to which the primary buyers have access to. So in other words, it would go back to the Fed. Well, the primary buyer would simply take the cash and deposit it at one of their member banks, and voila, instant $1 billion deposit. The problem is that the economy is so broken, unsure, and unstable that member banks can't loan out those deposits, as the risk for business ventures is at an all-time high. Who wants to start a business in this economy? Corporations are unsure and weary of the market. That future growth investments have all been put on hold. So what does it all mean? According to this source, he puts it this way. Picture a massive boat that has a very shallow bottom and is very top-heavy. The ocean liner will be called the USS Economy. Once a very lavish ship designed for and retrofitted for good times and pleasures. The very top floors, the top decks, contained all manner of entertainment, food, buffets, everything, shows, bands, everything. The only problem is that the boat was designed for only fair weather, and to make matters worse, the crew had gone on a drug binge and just happened to destroy all the navigational equipment and radar and such. So on top of that, good news, on top of this good news, this very top-heavy ship is heading straight into the mother of all typhoons. I mean, can you just imagine? Think of that. Top-heavy boat, shallow, very bottom, no navigational equipment, drugged up fools as captains and pursers and what have you, heading into the mother of all tycoons. This, folks, is what the U.S. economy is. What once was a battleship tempered by conflict and fueled by rugged individualism now has been refitted to a pleasure liner with very shallow bottom and a very heavy top. So the Fed has made the Fed has made the economy top heavy on top of everything else. These madmen have created, on top of everything else, these madmen have created in the marketplace. The extreme supply of deposits will be, well, more gasoline to the fire, to the soon coming hyperinflation and currency bust. So according to what the source is saying, we're going to see, because of how things are playing out, hyperinflation, meaning loaf of bread, what? And by the way, the other day when I went to buy a loaf of bread, I couldn't believe it went up like 75 cents a loaf.
What do you mean? I thought America was too big to fail.
Well, my goodness, I had to think twice. I was looking for the day-old bread when I was out shopping. Anyway, so it means hyperinflation and a currency bust. The ship is starting to keel. It is time to head for the life preservers of precious metals. So, smoke them if you got them. I'm kidding, of course. But if you have the means, precious metals might, because of their low cost or low price right now relative to what they were 6-8 months ago, they might be a good investment if you can afford them. And this would be a good time for me to say, folks, how are your preps coming? If you went to the store this week, did you pick up just something extra? Did you pick up a bag of rice maybe? Or two of cans of whatever you eat? You don't have to go out and spend $1 million on freeze-dried food. If you can, fine. I mean, not $1 million, but you don't have to spend all that money. But what have you done prep-wise? Now, this is Thursday, folks. So think over the last 4 days, if you have the means, what have you done prep-wise? Maybe $1 or $2. Hey, when I go shopping, and I do. By the way, I love to grocery shop, which is
I can't stand it.
I got to tell you, I love grocery shopping. I love to look at the prices and say, okay, and coupons, man. I should carry a purse, right? No, sorry. I like to see how low I can get my total cost of goods. But hey, 10 cans for $5 of soup, for example, not a bad price. And then throw $1 off coupon here and there, and then double if you go on double coupon days. It takes a little work, but you can do it. So once again, I ask you, how are your preps coming? So that, according to V, on Steve Quayle website, that's stevequayle.com, and it's right there for you to see.
All right.
Top message.
All right, we're going to go to area code 912. You're up live on the Hagmann Report.
Hey, how y'all the brothers doing tonight?
Excellent. What is on your mind tonight?
Actually, a guy had put it on my heart to talk about the difference between humble or being humbleness or having humbleness and pride. Satan fell from heaven because of pride. A lot of things that man does, the reason why man eventually is going to believe he is God is, once again, because of pride. And, I listen to some of the callers, talk about, they come to me and, they come with their guns, I'm going out and blazing glory, and they're not going to take this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, And I understand that, because I feel the same way. But those are, I believe, emotions that we have to get in check, which takes us to the humble side instead of the prideful side. The connection between the two, I believe, is faith. And I always talk about faith every time I come on here. But I really believe it's a catalyst to be able to not actually have to be here in the storm. Once again, like the 10 virgins. You had 5 wise and 5 foolish. Now the 5 wise, they had extra oil in the lamp. Now you look in the Bible what oil is and what oil is supposed to be. That's the Holy Spirit. And if they have extra oil in their lamp, that means they have a closer relationship with God. So they could hear the voice of God. They won't hear in the prideful side of the brain, the rational side of the brain, but they are actually in tune with the heartbeat, the soul, the essence of the Father. So when the Father said, get up, go, they got up and they left. Now the foolish virgins, the other 5, even though they were still virgins, they were pure. They had good intentions. They meant to do good, but they did not have that extra oil in their lamp. So when it was time to go, they won't go. They didn't leave. They actually stayed. And they had to deal with the tribulations. And I believe, we're coming at a time now where, yes, we need to physically prep. Yes, we need to protect ourselves. That is a God-given right. But I also believe that God doesn't necessarily want us to be violent. I believe that there could be another way instead of just being this violent way, saying I'm going out in a blaze of glory. And more or less, is this what God wants me to do? Does God want me? I have a family. I have a wife and 2 kids. One's only 7 months and another is on just about to turn 2. So my thought process can't be, I'm going out in a blaze of glory, because I got children to take care of. I got responsibility, so I can't sit here and just think of my pride. I have to think about the spirit that God has given me to see the insight of what's coming now. That's why we have the signs and the wonders and the book, the Word of God, to give us insight on what's to come. Because that day is not supposed to come to us like a thief. I'm sorry. Were you saying something?
No. You're exactly right. I was just agreeing with you. It's not supposed to come as a thief to those who are watching and waiting. And what you said at the opening about the difference between, pride and how people act and humility.
Let me just interrupt and just say I don't think people who are saying this are talking about being doing this in a manner that's going to rob their families of themselves. But rather, what these people are saying is, look, I'm not going to die on my knees. I'm going to fight, because once you agree to be in submission, or once you agree, let's say, to be taken to a camp, if you will, those non-existent camps everywhere, you're gone. And what good are you to your family then?
But what else? The way you go out. Do you, or do you let the Lord guide you?
That's
I
what
don't
I'm saying. And when that happens, you won't have to be there when they're coming to get you to take you to the FEMA camp, because God has already told you they're coming. It's time to go. So we won't be put in that predicament to have to make that choice. Do I want to die on my knees, or do I want to die in a blaze of glory? God might have another part of your life that you still need to live in, and people that you might actually be able to save. And I understand we must protect ourselves. That's true. But I believe before we have to come to that particular conclusion, God will give us a way out, because he doesn't want to see his people that way. But it's only those ones that study the word, that are in the word, that are humble. Just like Job talks about praying for the president. That's a humble man. A humble man that can actually come, forget my ego, forget how I feel as a man. Let me look what God told me to do. God told me to pray for my enemies. So I'm going to do this out of faith. Once again, we got this faith. It's the faith that's going to be able to give you the reality or the unction to hear the voice when it's time to go. But if you study more of the carnal mind, or things of the physical, things of man-made, and not more of the spiritual, then you don't hear God, because God is always talking, but he's talking in a still voice. And if we're too much loud in our emotions about I this and I that and then we're not hearing them. So then we'll be put in that predicament where now we have to make that choice, because we were the foolish virgins. We're still doing it. The intentions were good. That's the thing about the foolish virgins. It's not that they they were doing this thing to be, wrong because they were still virgins, they were still clean, but they went about it the wrong way. Their mentality wasn't on the things of the spirit, but it was more or less on the things of the physical. And I believe that's what I'm saying as far as them being able to come in and do whatever they're going to do, because people have a choice to listen to the spirit or listen to the emotion of man, is what I'm saying.
Yep. You hit on a key point on the emotion. With something we mentioned, people need to have their emotions in control. Otherwise, and that's what they teach military, SWAT teams, police, in any situation. You have to keep your emotions out of it because it clouds your judgment. And about praying for Obama, I got to tell you, it took the Lord, it took me a long time to let the Lord change the way I thought, because a year ago I couldn't do that and do it with a whole heart and mean it.
Yeah.
And thankfully today I can. But I wish more people would go in that direction.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Okay. Oh, okay. What I was going to say is one more thing I just wanted to speak on was the youth. I know a lot of the callers are that pretty much call are of an older age. I'm younger. I'm 27, but I feel like we still have hope as far as waking up our youth, because our youth can actually be a very powerful tool. Because a lot, once we get that information out there to the youth and their life starts changing, I'm talking about not just the physical side, but I like how y'all bring the spiritual and the physical together. Like I came to this realization through the whole Satanism and hip hop. That was my eye opener. Then the Illuminati, and then 9/11, and then finding out that 9/11 was a ritual. But these were like ear itchy things, things that caught my attention that made me be like, oh, something must be going on. And it's like our youth is slowly slipping away. I see the things on TV, the music videos. The latest video Lil Wayne had was a video of him having women bathing in blood, and he had death on his shirt. And then in his lyrics, he says they love me like they love Satan. I mean, saying this in a song, and everybody's banging this at the club, and so it's scary to see where our youth is actually at, because they're not awake. Not even on the level of knowing about the Declaration of the Independence and how they're grabbing the guns and this, that, and the other. But they're spiritually they're sleeping in a slumber also. And it's like I wish we could just pray together that we can get the youth out of that mindset, because they are the ones that galvanize a lot of the revolutions that happened. It was the youth. When the youth woke up, and that's when things started to happen. And I mean, I love y'all show, and I love how y'all do everything. And I believe that the people that y'all bring on are good people that can actually help. It's just I want to try to find a bridge to be able to get to youth, because they are our future, regardless of what future we might be having. So I just want us to stand in agreement to pray for the youth, and that was it.
Yeah, and to make the extend on your last point, the dead leading the dead. When you're talking about the youth listening to the Hollywood culture, the music industry, the video game culture, this is what we're seeing being manifested, and it is the spiritually dead leading and continuing to capture more souls and turning them into spiritually dead people.
Yeah, Lady Gaga even got on stage at a concert and said, "I don't want your money, I want your soul." And people just party into that. That's scary, because where I grew up, we had, we did our little things here and there, but we ain't mess with the devil and the soul. No. We might go here and do this and do that, but to openly just be like, yeah, I serve Satan. And then I remember you putting a clip up there with her talking about, oh, I swear to Lucifer, and nobody just, that was just, okay. That's scary. So,
it's very scary.
It really is. Yeah.
How open they are now.
Yeah, to no problem. It's like they have no problem admitting it now because the whole country is numb to Satanism. No matter what form it might be in, it's like it's just okay, oh well. It doesn't get to anybody anymore. It's just like everyone's numb, like they say, plugged into this matrix. And they just every day they do the same thing over and over again. I had to break out of that because I'm like, God, it got to be more than this. I went to church looking for him. I'm like, God, when I would ask the pastor a certain question, they tell me, don't ask that because now you're questioning God. And I'm like, well, why is it got to be me questioning God, but me trying to understand God? But that's the way that the church is now. I can't even go as a young man trying to follow the right path. I can't go to a man of God, supposedly, and tell him my feelings about, this in the scripture and that in the scripture, because they tell me, that's questioning God. But in the Bible, it tells us to seek him, ask him questions, and he will answer it. So why are my people that are supposed to be my leaders telling me don't seek him, listen to me, I got all the answers? Once again, putting that man on top of that altar as if he's God and he has the answers, but he's not. And one more quick thing, and I know I got to get off, but I wanted to talk about how when God was going to come down and talk to the Hebrews, he told Moses to gather them. This was right after the Passover, which is really ironic to what's going on right now. But this is right after the Passover, where the blood was over the mantle and all that other stuff. And he said, okay, get my people and tell them that I want to come down and talk to them. Gather them all together. So Moses went back and got all of the people and told them, God told me to take you to this particular place. He wants to come down and talk to you face to face. So they get all the people together and they all go up here, and I'm paraphrasing a little pieces by piece, but it's in there. But they go all together, and God comes down, with the thunder and the lightning, and everything is just, the earth is shaking. I mean, it's God. He's coming in with an entrance. If I was God, I would too. So it's like he was just showing his might. And all of the Hebrews ran and got scared and left. And Moses was like, where are you going? God wanted to come and talk to you. So Moses finally goes down to them. And he said, what happened? Why didn't you, come and talk to God? They said, no, we fear God. No, Moses, you go and talk to him. And whatever you say, we'll do. I believe right then that was the beginning of this whole church where you just have one man as the pastor instead of the elders when it was the elders of the church. It wasn't just one man with all this responsibility. Man, it's one man with all this power. So we're able to get the word because just like in a house church or in a house gathering, just like tonight on the phone, we could all give our piece of what God has said to us, and collectively, being the body of Christ, we can get a clearer answer of what God is saying to each one of us individually. But when we only have one man sitting there saying, this is what God is saying to you, you cannot get his whole answer because God is too big to be in just one man. It's the multitudes that you get the knowledge from. And I believe we've fallen from the true beginning of the first church, how the first church had the elders, and now we're into this Nicolaitan church model, which it actually talks about in the Revelation. Jesus spits that out of his mouth, where there's one man and everybody else is under him. We're not getting the true scriptures, and we can't get the true meaning of what God is saying in his word. His word is the water to our spirit. It quenches us. We're 70% water. We cannot go without water. We cannot go without his word because his word is what is the essence that keeps us alive. And that's all I want to say. God bless y'all. And I listen every night, and I'll listen to y'all tomorrow.
Well, thank you for listening. God bless you, and thank you for your call. It was a wonderful spiritual call, and we really appreciate it. You take care, and we'll talk to you soon, all right?
All righty.
All right. What a great call. Moving on the callers here. We got about half hour left of the show. We're going to go to 814. 814, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hello.
Good evening.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. What's on your mind tonight?
I just want to thank God for you guys. We've been listening to you for a few months or so. We've been waking up slowly over the last 20 years. But it's just very refreshing to see Christian people with a awake perspective. I just wanted to share a little bit of disgruntled news. We went to Erie today to a Sam's Club, and we were just taking the advice of getting a few extra things here and there, and we didn't really grab too many things, maybe 6 or 8 items. And I went with my dad. He's getting up there in the years. He has a hard time driving towards the evening hours. He was pretty proud he drove himself up there today, and it was getting later in the day, so we went through the checkout, and they only had a couple open, but there was a lot of people in there, so it took quite a while to get through there. And I swiped his cars for him and helped him out. And on the way out the door, this fella grabbed my dad's receipt, and he was looking over the items. And I don't know. I just feel like maybe I woke up a little bit. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention. But I just looked at this guy and the way he looked at my dad and that receipt, and I just could picture this Nazi uniform on this guy. And we was there for almost a minute, and there was only like 8 items in the cart, and I just couldn't understand. So I started laughing, and I said, "What's wrong?" And he said, "I'll tell you what's wrong. You're going to go back there to the service center because you got the wrong amount of items in your cart." So I was pretty shocked. And my dad just looked down at his feet, and he put his cart over there. And he didn't even realize really what was going on. He just pushed his cart up to the front of the line, and it bumped into the thing, and he says, "What do I do now?" And the lady says, "You got to get to the end of the line, sir." And I just looked at the line, and all these people were standing there just looking like they were defeated. And I said, "Dad, come here. Let's get in the line." And I started explaining to my dad, "You see what's going on, Dad? You see what they're doing to us?" I said, "You no more than checked out 50 yards, and you couldn't even make it 50 yards before somebody questioned your intention and treated you like a criminal."
Mm-hmm.
And before we was done, we talked to the manager and got the point sort of across. But I feel like we're being conditioned, and this has been going on for a long time. I mean, when you buy something, it becomes your property. And my dad worked hard over the years, and he hasn't ever been arrested for anything. He's an honorable man. He's an icon of our family. And to see him treated that way, it broke my heart. And there's no excuse in it. That is property. He bought it. Who on earth are they to question 50, 100 yards away from where he just bought it on his way out the door? And then
you bring up a very important point. Caller, let me just interject something here because I find this a little bit humorous. Not the situation by any stretch, but you could have very well have seen my wife at that Sam's Club at the time period that you were there as a customer, taking her father, who is suffering from some memory issues and some coherence issues, doing the same thing, doing the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And isn't it funny? I mean, we're kind of neighbors, caller. I don't know where in the 814 area code you might be, but we're not too far from
south.
that.
All my family on my mother's side is from the Fairview, Girard, Lake City area, northeast, all over here there. So I know the area real well.
So we're kind of neighbors, if you will.
Yeah, we're out of Erie.
Our studios are located in Mill Creek Township. So, but that said, you know what? When I took her father had to go for a special trip as well because they've got some things in that Sam's Club. I don't want to get too personal, but anyway, I accompanied her father this past weekend, and they did the same thing to him then as they did today. And I laughed too because he's got a dog and he had several cans of dog food in his. It was a cart full of stuff. And are you telling me this guy is actually going through? And I know the guy you're talking about.
There's no way to go through it because they had 2 checkouts opened up and they couldn't get all the people through. And this guy had people backing up behind me. It was just the demeanor, and he didn't act that way until I laughed at how just ridiculous it was. And
right, and
right, do they even have to?
There's a job waiting for him at the TSA. But seriously, no, I know what you mean, though. I know what you mean. It's a conditioning of making you feel like a criminal without cause.
But they don't have any right to do that. That's your personal property. I mean, it's like, give me your papers. I want to check your food. I'm to the point where And I work for Schwann's Home Service on several occasions, and I know thousands of people all over northwestern Pennsylvania. And I keep in contact quite a few people, too, and I am really going to just voice this out there as much as I possibly can. I'm not going to do business with a company that does that. I've watched my parents. My mother was in the Lions Club, and she was president of the Lions Club in this town before, the whole thing got shut down just because of lack of participation. But I watched them spend tens of thousands of dollars in that place. And it's just totally ridiculous that they can take your money, but at the same time have no respect for you as a person. And I've heard different arguments. Well, they're thinking you might be stealing something. But if you look at that place, there's a stack of pallets from the door to the register. You cannot even go from one side to the other without going through the registers.
And what are the detectors for there? If they have the detectors that they say if you're shoplifting, they can it'll sound that alarm if you take something out of there.
Yeah, Joe, I'm telling you, I think those callers were right on the money. I think it's air conditioning, and the detectors, I don't think detect anything, but that's just me.
But no, this goes to another point. Showing old people having to show ID to buy alcohol or cigarettes. We saw a story about that. It doesn't matter their age; it's new store policies.
Yeah, you could look like you're 75 and a prune, okay, and like I do, and you still get carded for alcohol, tobacco, or whatever. So it's crazy, caller. It really is. And let me ask you this: how did your dad take it? Was he okay? I mean,
well, he's a real sharp guy. I mean, he just got out of full-time work. He worked all the way up until he's 75. He's sharp, has facilities about him, but he just doesn't understand. And I mean, to me, it's a little bit confusing too. Just the way they're starting to treat people, because it's really getting kind of weird out there. But he just looked at it like this. There's no excuse for it. But he's not one to try to create that big of a fuss within a crowd. Instead, he just basically folds and capitulates every time. I voiced my opinion loud and clear what I thought. I thought there was absolutely no excuse to have a Nazi checkpoint on the way out the door. And that's just the bottom line. But he took it with a grain of salt, sort of, but I kind of come unglued. And I was the one who got loud because I don't treat my father that way. I don't appreciate somebody else doing it either.
God bless you, my friend. I love it. And people might be cringing out there saying, Doug, you got to have a little bit more patience. But I know of which you speak. And I'm very protective of I lost my parents. I don't have, but I'm very protective of my father-in-law. And I don't like people treating my father-in-law, who earned dignity through his life, in that fashion. I don't like to see him treated like that, or anyone treated like that for that matter. Now, again, the argument could be made, well, they're checking for shoplifters or whatever. I'm not buying that at all.
Me neither. There's a lie.
They look at the receipt and they maybe put a mark on it or something. They don't look through everything that I've seen, only in certain instances, So I
was for over 1 minute, there was 7 items in the cart. That's it. There's no excuse, and 4 of those items were like items. Actually, and then there was another 2 items that were the same. There was only 2 items in that cart that were different than the other 2 items. That's why I started laughing.
Crazy.
But it really freaked me out when I just felt like the spirit come over me, and I just saw this Nazi uniform go over this guy, and just looking down the brim of his hat, and it just was pure evil. And I just thought maybe I was just going crazy. Maybe I drank too much coffee or something. But it just like the windows opened up. I see people around the lines looking defeated. I don't know if they're putting too much flour in the water up there or what, but it was really sad. It just broke my heart, and I just thought I would just voice it. And I'm really thinking hard about boycotting these guys, because really, if you look at their stuff, they're not any cheaper than any place else. And if that's what this big corporation is going to do after Sam Walton died, I mean, I don't want no part of them, really.
No, and I agree with you. And up in our area, there are plenty of local places where a lot of times you can purchase the same items equally, or even at the same price for buy local. So, but God bless you. Anything else on your mind, my friend?
No, that's about it. There's a bunch of things. I don't want to take up your time, but I look forward to calling in again and talking to you guys. Perhaps maybe meeting you sometime.
Perhaps we will.
Yeah,
God
maybe.
bless. All right.
Thanks
God
for the call,
Thank you.
and look forward to talking to you again.
Yeah.
Have a great night.
You too. Bye-bye.
There, a little caller close to home.
Yeah, and Joe, I want to tell everyone this too, okay? I've got a couple of emails saying, well, why are you taking callers, and why are you doing this? And I'll tell you why. Because sometimes callers try to call in and they've got things on their mind they do want to say, like this gentleman here, perfectly legit. I mean, is it topic specific to news of February of 2013? No, but I'll tell you something. You just don't know what that next call is going to be. But this is the caller show as well. We know
we're listener supported,
right? Plus
listener driven, obviously.
And how many people can talk? Because we've got numbers that are low six figures that listen to every show. So you've got a platform where you're able to reach a large number of people. So I just want to say that.
Yeah,
Joe, I'm sorry.
And it's always nice. I mean, no, it's always good to hear from as many people as possible. And we should, put a day aside a week or something like that to do this more often, as it is good, like I said, to hear what is on the listeners' minds, and no matter what subject it is. And with that, we're going to go back to the listeners. Area code 530. We're going to you next. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Good evening, gentlemen. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Great. Hey, listen, glad to be on the line with you guys tonight. I've basically started listening to you guys quite some time ago, at least several months ago, thanks to Steve Quayle and the Hawk and to those types of folks, and to a lesser extent Alex+Jones, but certainly I've heard you, Doug, do several interviews in the past, and really liked your insight and your commentary. And since you guys embarked on your own show, and Joe, I really appreciate your side of things, and I think it's an absolutely necessary thing that to see what I get out of you guys, not only the information and not only the commentary and your insight, but just the fact that a father and son team is working together in harmony, I think is a great example as to to a lot of other the rest of us you got to put a lot of us out there, you got to put your pride aside, and you got to work within your families, you got to work within your neighborhoods, and you got to work within your communities. I was in the queue last night. By the way, my name is Solar Steve. My real name is Jason. I'm out of Northern California, and I used to be a host on the Just Measures radio network known as Solar Steve from Solar Nation. Anyway, back to what I was saying. There was a caller on last night that talked about getting extremely local. And I got to say, that was some of the best advice that I have heard out of a caller in a very long time, because it is so succinct, it was so on point, and it is so important what he was saying. And, I affectionately am working with various local civilian, organizations and militia units. I finally call the organization NorCal Civil Defense, and I think that the name kind of implies what we're talking about here. This is organizing neighborhoods and communities for food, for logistical support, for communications, for water, for intelligence and information, and keeping things. Listen, guys, that caller was so important. I don't mean to go back to the caller, but my own message is it really does come down to local. It really, really will matter the most, aside from your relationship with the Lord Jesus Christ. That is going to be the glue that keeps whatever remains of this nation together. And I encourage each and every one of you. I think it was you, Doug, last night that, well, how do you do that? How do you talk to your neighbors? I could be mistaken about that. But I
asked him how he did it.
Right. Go ahead.
Right. So go ahead. No.
Yeah. it just, the caller was right. You just be neighborly. You just talk to your neighbor. You're not going to win everyone over. And no, I don't think you go in depth with all this stuff. The first thing you got to do is just be neighborly and get to know who you live around. We are going to have to support ourselves. We are going to have to rely on each other, and that is so critically important. It just is.
You're exactly right. And you hit on an excellent point. You got to get out there and talk to your neighbors. And so many people are stuck in their electronic devices, in their little bubbles, that they could live next to people for years and not even know their names. And
absolutely.
It's sad, but that is like one of obviously the number one way to be able to even talk to your neighbors about things like this is to know who they are, know their first names, say hi to them, make a point to meet them if you see them outside.
And absolutely. I think that caller last night said he had like 4 people that he was close to or in his group. I talked to someone else today who has roughly the same number of people who are close to him. So let's say there's 5 people. How many, what can be done with 5 people? A lot. It's a lot better if you can have 2, 3, 4 people with you that when things do get bad, because you're not going to be able to stay up all night and guard your your homestead 24/7. Plus, the bringing in other talents, people with other knowledge of other things, like even if maybe your neighbor's a doctor, or maybe your friend is a doctor, or a dentist, or somebody with skills, So it's very important. You bring up a great point about preparations, and I think that's part of. While we still have the time, let's farm for that. Let's attempt to do that.
Okay. Well,
go ahead.
Go ahead. If Joe, do you have something to say with that?
No, I think my dad's right. You're right that we need to find a way, and we don't have to, come to the neighbor with any type of political or religious beliefs. Just the belief for their well-being, and to let them know if you ever need anything, I'm here, and you just build on the relationship from there.
The caller, you said, kind of start slow, Start slow.
I'll tell you how I'm doing it, how I'm working on it. And I have to just tell a quick story of how I even woke up to begin with. It was a fateful day in late September of 2008 when, out of the blue, and it must have been the Lord. That's all I can say. I ended up stumbling onto Steve Quayle and the Hawk on together in the midst of the 2008 crisis, or when it was really breaking news. What they said, along with my own feelings for a very long time, and I was never able to put my finger on it. I said, this can't go on. This stuff that's going on out there, it just cannot continue. There is going to be, something that comes out of this, and a lot of folks are unfortunately going to die. It's just unfortunate, but I'm just calling it the way I'm seeing it, and so, back then, of course, it was, red alert crash course to begin preparing. And I have to say that in this time that the Lord has given us, I've done things that most people probably haven't done. And I'm extremely fortunate for that, and I thank the Lord daily for that. So now, back in 2009, 2010, I thought, I need to start helping my fellow man here, and even if it's just to get on on Skype, on the telephone, and be a talk show host and bring something to the table. My penchant was renewable energy and alternative energy and energy prepping generally. Of course, I talked about other things as well, but that was kind of my signature. So, and through that process, you get to a point where it dawns on you one day and you have that aha moment, you know what? I cannot possibly do this by myself. There is a point in time during a person's wake-up process that you realize you are not an island. And even if you could be, that is certainly not what the Lord would have any of us do. It's always been about people. It's always been about relationship. It's always been about fellowship, and the whole, at the risk of, see, this is the thing. This is how communism got perverted this concept, and it really irritates me to think about it. But the many are more important than the few, because that is true. Not from a communist standpoint, but from a community and a neighborhood standpoint. Because some people would take that out of context and go, "Oh, you're talking about you're a communist." Well, anyway.
No.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying exactly, and that is, you are right. And unfortunately, our reality and our understanding of certain things have been so polluted that people don't understand the concept that collectivism or even socialism, to a certain extent, would be a good idea if it was done properly. It could be done properly, and I'm not talking about the socialism that is in
it's
France.
certainly not the expense of personal freedom.
Right.
No, of course not. Of course not. And it was once it was. I've heard it said. In fact, I've listened to many people, especially when I researched the article on the Federal Reserve. Eustace Mullins, the author of The Secrets of the Federal Reserve, I listened to him talk, and he said, if we really, in a perfect world, we wouldn't need money. And it made sense to me. So he was, but at first I was kind of shocked. I was thinking, well, wait a minute, he's advocating or espousing socialist views, but that's not what he meant, and that's not what you mean either. And certainly
absolutely not. And before I know, we got 10 minutes left in the broadcast tonight, and I'm really glad I got on tonight. There's 3 pieces of information that I would like to put out. Some of it's old. But, you never know who is on the line. So I feel prompted to put it out there. Number 1, when I was a junior in high school back in 1987, I decided to join the National Guard. I was still a junior in high school. At the end of my junior year, I went to basic training. The following year, after graduation, I went to AIT. I was a combat engineer in the United States Army National Guard for California. I was in that station for 5.5 years. During that time, the 1992 Los Angeles riots had happened. My unit was mobilized to respond to that action. We were federalized during that operation, and the name of the operation that appeared on my DD-214 after we were released was Operation Garden Plot. That's number 1. Yeah. Okay. Number two. I have heard lots of, not lots, but I've heard a few folks, including the Hawk, talking about Chinese nationals being taught how to fly aircraft in the United States. I can confirm at least one of these flight schools located in Redding, California, at the Redding Regional Airport. This has been an ongoing operation for a number of years. I have actually ran into these Chinese nationals still in their flight. They're probably more of their dressy or classroom uniform. There was several of them with, in the grocery store with an escort. But I've heard these people on flight aviation frequencies. I'm also an amateur radio operator, and I have listened to these people communicating with the control tower and doing their flight training on a daily basis for quite some time now. That's the second one. The third one is...
Wait, sir, wait a second. Let's not gloss over number 2 real quick here. What are you telling me? Or what are you telling us? Are you telling us that you've heard
Not only have I heard them operate in flight, of course, they're in quote-unquote trading flights using light aviation assets, your light Cessnas and such like that. They have a certain radio designator, and I learned to identify it. You could, of course, hear their thick accent when they're communicating with the tower. And there were stories that were reported in the local newspaper talking about this. So, I mean, this is not a conspiracy theory. I mean, in fact, you're on my friend's Facebook, both of you are. I will dig up the article and send it to you.
I appreciate that, because I'd like to revisit that off air. Okay, go ahead, number 3.
And number 3, and this is getting a little more outside my own personal purview, but I think that most of us probably understand that the Chinese do own a sizable portion of California infrastructure, and more particularly the port at Long Beach. Now, we've also heard reports of Chinese equipment, Chinese-style equipment, that has gone into northern Mexico, just south of the southern front. And, of course, we know that, the commander-in-chief, we all know who that is, has removed the, radar systems from the southern border. This has been an ongoing problem for a number of years now. Only I think that what we're starting to see now, when you start removing the early warning air defense systems from a national border, I think what you're starting to see is the priming of the next evolution, if you know what I mean. And so not only did a lot of these assets probably come in either through Mexico, but also there have been videos that have been put up, I can't reference them now, that I'm showing materials on rail, heading out of what would seem to be southwestern California, call it the Port of Long Beach, perhaps allegedly, heading to destinations either east or south. So to speak. Combine that with Hawk's reports of the Chinese officers coming into Wright-Patterson Air Force Base and then being dispersed across the country. Is this the advanced party that will oversee the general troop deployment to this prepositioned material? That's kind of where I'm going with that. And it all seems to fit nice and neat like when you look at all of it. And the last thing, there was a local story in the Reading Record Searchlight that had to do with a winery of all places that also decided to build a church. I know it sounds kind of strange, but this is the story. They have been in an ongoing war with the county over building permits and things like this. Apparently, Anselmo Vineyards decided that they could just build it and they will come. Well, I'm actually in support of that kind of philosophy, but of course the county presumptively is not. But the point is they had a big rally out there the other day. And lo and behold, you had representatives from Doug LaMalfa all the way down to, local leaders and things. Even Patriot Radio community was there. There is a local Patriot radio station in Redding, California. But what did they see in the air above the event? A drone. And it even was referenced in the article that the Reading Searchlight did publish regarding a drone, and even the comments of some of the local leaders about the drone, because it turns out that Redding, California has a private venture business that specializes in UAV development and operation.
Oh, yes. I am aware of that, I shouldn't say fully aware of it, but I've heard references to what you just described.
Caller, we're out of time. I want to thank you for your call. It was very informative. Some
Thank
great
you so much, you guys. God bless you in Jesus' name. And the Lord of hosts dispatch warrior angels to guard your six. Yeah, that's all I can say. You guys are are hands down the number one show. You guys just get right down to business. There's not a bunch of fluff. I love you guys for that. Keep up the great work in Jesus' name. Thank you so much, gentlemen.
God bless. Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
for the kind words. God bless you. Have a great night. Thanks for the call.
Very well. Now, for those who are still on hold, we apologize we didn't get to you tomorrow. We have a lot of news to cover, a lot of analysis, part 2 of who's taking us down economically.
And we will be back on video also, starting tomorrow.
Well, we hope to be. Joe has
I plan on it. At least
you've got a checkbook that has no money in it, and I'm just using that as an example. Sometimes we plan things they don't exactly work out. But anyway, folks, tomorrow more on the people taking us down economically and why they're doing it. God bless you. Good night, everyone.